Mm-hmm. I can't see myself under 1,000 pound squat, but in time, you mentally became okay with that.
Mm-hmm.
Then that's it. Like, not only you became okay with it, it was who you became. Like,
yeah.
No.
They're like, no, stop taking tests.
Yeah.
Like, no matter what you went in there for.
Yeah. That's the reason.
That's the reason. Yeah. You know, they'll.
So you're doing it on the meet day. Like, that's why I started leaving more and more in the tank. Like, I lifted weights in my final years that were like my max weights that I was lifting 2-3 years prior or something. I was just doing more work leading up to it and then leaving a little more in the tank in the end. And
I missed my bench here.
Yeah.
What exercise do I need to do to build that?
Yeah. For me, it's just more heavy benches seamlessly. Like, the heaviest weight you can do through that range of motion perfectly from point A to point B before it form breaks.
It's time to sit down, keep it real, and cut the bullshit. Welcome to Table Talk. All right, guys, we're back with another episode of Table Talk. Today, my guest is Jeremy Hamilton, former competitive powerlifter from 2007 to 2016, competed in all the Raw Unity meets from Raw Unity 1 to 8,
yeah.
And was a former all-time world record holder in the 220s with a 21:23 total. Still has the highest total or highest dots in Canada.
I think so.
For the 220.
People tell me. I don't.
People tell you don't pay that much attention.
I'm not as deep in anymore.
Yes. Yeah. And as the owner of Fortis West in Toronto.
Correct.
And excited to have you on because you were a guest that was highly requested, and you're not real active on social media at all.
No, you can't really find me.
No, you can't. Because when I was doing research for the show, I found real quick, that there's not a lot out. So this is going to be good.
I mean, there's not a lot out that's like current, but there's a ton of stuff between like 2010 and 2012 to 2015
on Omar's site. Yeah,
there's a lot in that point. And that's maybe where you'll have people with the requests that remember me from that, but nothing really current. No, I'm pretty quiet.
Yeah, I think they want to know about your competitive journey, which I did find that. So there was, and that was a fun story to listen to. So that's kind of what I want to get into.
Okay.
Is, how you actually, before you got into powerlifting, you were in jiu-jitsu. Is that correct?
I did a ton of BJJ from I was 16, 17 till I was 23, 24. And I thought that was I thought I was obsessed with it, but I didn't realize that there is a whole giant other level to obsession that I got into, obviously, with powerlifting after that. But that's kind of what I started kind of lifting and deadlifting for that. Because I remember I'd be wrestling and I just sucked at wrestling. So I'd get caught underneath people and I'd want to know, how do I stand up with somebody when I'm being sprawled on? So I'm like, okay, a deadlift, I guess that makes the most sense. But I mean, women think that they have it hard with body dysmorphia stuff. They have Barbie and things like that.
Yeah.
We have He-Man and Ronnie Coleman. And so the first time I did a deadlift, I pulled 405 and I was 16, weighing 160 pounds. And I was embarrassed. I thought it was just so awful because I was looking at Ronnie Coleman and Flex Magazine, and he's bench pressing it for refs. And I was embarrassed. I didn't want to do it again after that. I felt so bad about myself.
So you did that to help the wrestling? Or
I did that because I'm just thinking, what is the most basic thing? I'm getting sprawled on. How do I stand up? Okay, I'll build a strong back. And that kind of took me down that path towards being strong.
At what point did powerlifting come on your radar without getting into your first meet just yet?
Oof. I mean, my brother did a meet, so I knew about it. When I was lifting, and I remember, and I started bench pressing, I got a little decent at it. I'm what are records in this thing? Because I feel everywhere I go, I'm in a small town, so it's not a big pool there. But most places I go, I'm usually the strongest guy or one of the strongest for my size in the stupid lifts that I did. So then I look into this I see like what my brother's doing. He's younger than me. And I look up, like, there's like a sheet with like records on it. And it's like, dudes are like bench pressing. Like I'm benching like 4 plates at this point, like under 200 pounds. And I see like, oh, I'm seeing like 500 and like 550 and even up to like 600. I'm like, what is going on? Like, I'm just that weak, I guess. Yeah. And then later I go to like his meets and stuff, and I'm seeing like, they're wearing something. They're not just walking around with their arms out for no reason.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Like I thought it was like maybe like some imaginary lat syndrome. They're just like walking with their arms out. I'm like, oh, they're wearing something, but I didn't really like that. I'm like, I don't want to wear something. I wish there was something where people are not wearing this supportive gear, and we can just see who's really the strongest.
And you came in at a time when Raw was just starting. It really wasn't even a thing.
It wasn't even a thing yet. This was something that I was like thinking about and obsessing over. Like, why? Like, I want a strength contest, but I don't want to wear things. Like, whatever's just like, let's take our things off here and let's just lift weights. And I wasn't seeing it. So I ended up moving to Toronto, and if
you've been following the Table Talk podcast, you know that element is a staple in most strength athlete and coaches' repertoire when working with the athletes or as they're preparing for whatever endeavor they're preparing for. I personally use it every day. My favorite flavor is the grapefruit, which I'll mix in water during my training, post-training, or basically throughout the whole day. I'll also use half a pack on my oatmeal in the morning. And if I don't put it in my oatmeal, then I'll put half a pack in my coffee. There's a variety of different chocolate flavors that come into the chocolate pack. I'm using it throughout the entire day. I'm not front loading it before my training. And I find that it completely eliminates the brain fog, which I just had, so maybe I should have had my element. Table Talk listeners can receive a free sample pack with any order. To go to www.drinkelement.com/tabletalk. That again is www.drinkelement.com/tabletalk. Element also offers a no questions asked refund policy. So if you don't like it for any reason, give it to a salty friend and they'll give you a complete 100% money back. All right, guys, if you're anything like me, there's going to be certain times of the year where you're going to suffer from brain fog because either you're working too much or not working enough, or your training just sucks and it's not going the way that you want it to go. Merrick Health can help with this. Merrick Health is a premium telehealth platform that focuses on hormone optimization and preventative medicine. merrickhealth.com/table talk. You look for the guided optimization, you set that up, you'll get 10% off your first order, even if it is just the labs or the guided optimization, by using the code TABLETALK.
The Elite FTS Discord is an amazing group of people at all skill levels that are all there to help each other get better. I initially joined because I felt that I needed some guidance, and it's shockingly cheap. I've learned so much about lifting via the form checks and programming conversations. We've also delved pretty deep into nutrition, brain chemistry, and business, and life in general. My favorite features are the form checks, the training Q&A, and the community. I train myself and my wife in my garage gym, and with the Discord, I have the ability to have in-depth conversations about anything under the sun. As I've gotten older, it's been hard to find people passionate about athletics, and this group has changed that for me. It's had a profound effect on my life. I've met new friends, my approach to training has radically changed for the better, and I've become a better coach. My wife has some health issues that we've been able to mitigate thanks to the guidance of people in the server, and I love them for that. The value you can get for your money is stunning. You'll get access to some of the best people in the world, plus being part of such a kind, helpful community that deeply cares about all things athletics is a great thing to wake up to every day.
There was like a little garage gym called The Anvil, by a guy by the name of Clint Harwood. Do you remember him?
Mm-hmm.
Shirted bencher, huge guy.
Yeah.
And he'd let people come to his little garage and we'd lift weights in there. But, you know, I sought him out because I'm like, I think I want to try this, but I don't really like the gear, but I better kind of figure this out and see, because I think I could be good at this. So I seek him out, and I go to his gym. and I see these guys lifting, and they're taking like 3 hours to like squat a triple because they're getting their suit on or whatever. Or same with the bench, or they're like taking 3 hours to like bench to like a 2 board or something, and then kind of hanging it up. And that didn't really jive well with me. And I just kept thinking, like, again, I wish there was like a raw meat.
How were you training before this, to get that 405 bench?
To get so because I was doing a lot of BJJ, I think I was only lifting like twice a week at this point. But to get the 405 bench, so I would just read everything I could, and try everything I could too to see what would work. So remember like Dinosaur Training, Brooks Kubik, like that book was pretty a big deal to me at the time, because that kind of took me away from like the Flex magazine of like doing sets of 10 to like, oh, I can lift something as heavy as I can once and actually get stronger.
Yeah.
And it worked. So that's kind of something I pulled from that. But to do like, I actually got up to 440 under 200 pounds bench as a natty. And that was, I used Power to the People.
Pavel.
Yeah. So that was pretty big for me too. Like, not lifting till failure and like greasing the groove and treating this like a skill rather than like a bodybuilding workout.
When did the Raw Unity come onto your radar?
So I'm thinking about how there needs to be a raw meat, and I'm going to the Anvil. I was only there like a few months, and I go home, open up the computer, and I finally see what I'm looking for. It's super weird. Like, it's almost like I willed this into existence. I see like a post. It was on fortifiediron.com. Remember that? So I would read that a lot. And it's like, lifters, take off your gear and let's see who the strongest is, like Raw Unity meet. So I'm like, what is this? I click on this. I couldn't believe what I'm seeing. And it was for Raw Unity 1. They had not had a raw meet yet. And it was met with a lot of criticism. People were pissed. Yeah, they didn't like it.
That's an understatement.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, people, why are you trying to reinvent the wheel? And like, remember that stupid site Outlaws or whatever?
Yeah.
Oh man.
It was
like
the worst on there.
Oh, a bunch of idiots just going crazy. Yeah, making fun of it. But there was clearly a need because it blew up pretty quick.
Yeah, it pulled in some multiply lifters too.
It did. Yeah.
I don't know if Sam Bird was in the first one.
No,
but
Sam didn't come on until Rum 4.
Yeah, but there were a few. That. I
mean, everyone had to be a multiply lifter then, pretty much, or it was your single. First meet. Yeah, and for me, it was my first meet. And I trying to remember here.
So how did you get invited or qualify? Because I can't remember how Eric was doing that at the time.
Right, it was by Eric Talmont, who was one of your lifters, sponsored lifters at the time, which meant a lot to me. It's like, oh, this is like associated with Elite FTS. This is going to be a legit thing. But people were pissed because remember they had a meet like a year before, not Raw Unity, but
it was some other Raw.
New England record
breakers. Yeah.
Donnie Thompson was there. Ryan Selly was there, and the meet director, I guess, like fucked them around and didn't pay them or something. Got them all to come out and lift, and they didn't pay anybody. So that's why people were pissed off. At like, no more raw stuff. But your question was, how to qualify. So at that point, I had not done a single meet, so there's no way for me to qualify. But they're looking for lifters, so I just like, okay, I'm just gonna say what I can lift. So I write like, 440 bench to Eric. I'm like, hey, can I come lift? 440 bench. At that time, it was like a 635 beltless deadlift. And at that point, I didn't squat. Like I tried it a couple times, but because I was like doing a lot of BJJ and stuff and still it just made me very sore. And like, I didn't feel like I had a need for it. So obviously I did it a handful of times just to see what it was about, but not for years, like basically zero. But what I did do to increase my leg strength was I did a ton of pistols, like pistol squats. And I got up to doing pistols with holding a 110-pound dumbbell. So on one leg, holding a 110-pound dumbbell, and I could do like 3 of them. Or I could do like pistols like I could like jump onto a table kind of thing with one
Yeah.
leg. So I was like, okay, my leg strength is high. So I just wrote like, okay, 500 pounds. Yeah. And so I just made up a number, and I got like a reply, and he's like, hey, that might win the 198s, which is exactly what my ego needed at the time to get me to go. Because this was my first meet. And I'm not an American. I'm a Canadian. It's all the way in Florida. I've maybe flown like once or twice in my life at that point. So it was to me, it was pretty hard to go to, like, it's not a backyard meet. It's as far away as I can go in the States, like basically to do my first meet, but I'm going to win. So,
and that was your mindset.
Yeah. So but I mean, like, again, like I made up a number for squatting.
So then so after you're accepted and you go in the gym, obviously you're going to try to figure out where your squat is.
Right. Yeah.
What happened there?
So I go to the anvil and I tell these guys, hey, I'm in this meet. You guys got to help me squat. Like, all right, well, let's see where you're at. And so I started working up, and I worked up to, I think, 385. So I was nowhere near it. So it doesn't matter how much you can like pistol squat or whatever. It's like you have to put something on your back and then bend your legs. It's a lot more trunk stability is involved, or it's maybe all in trunk stability. I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was piss poor week at that. So it was less than my bench. Yeah.
So when you told them you were going to do this meet, what was their feedback?
About probably mixed emotions. Like, I don't know, what is this? What's going on? They knew about it because it's like associated with you in an indirect way through Eric. And then all like the chatter on the internet about how it's nonsense or it's awesome.
Yeah. So
they knew about it. But I think they were like, good luck.
Yeah. So
because in this gym, they're all like gear lifters, and like Clint, very strong bench presser, like insane, like benching over 800 pounds is nuts to see, even if it is in gear. And I don't know how this works. I
think at that time he may have had the highest Canadian bench at the time, or something like that.
Yeah, he for sure did at that time. He was, he went pretty deep in WPC, I think, for a little bit. I put on one of his shirts once just to see how it fit, and he's like huge guy, like maybe 400 pounds ish, and I was like 200 pounds, and the shirt was tight. I could still barely get it on. I didn't do anything in it, but I just wanted to see what this felt like. So that's kind of how I got towards that channel of rum.
Then how did you change your training leading into that meet?
I think I only lifted twice per week for that meet because I kept getting stronger. I think it was like day one bench and deadlift, and day two was like squat, overhead press, and some pull-ups. And I did weighted pull-ups every time I trained. And it was like up to something heavy and back off sets like crazy. And I think I just slowly added from there on.
So you didn't start at a lower number. It was just basically whatever you could do.
For like, so you mean like working up to a max?
Yeah, for that meet.
I didn't really know how to peak for a meet. So the numbers I put out there, I did end up squatting 506. So I should have said a higher number because turns out you just do whatever you say you're going to do. Not really. But at that time I did have the 440 bench, and I think I missed 407 or something. Like, I think I got my opener, and then on second attempt, I think it was like, I jumped like the start command or something, and they red lighted me. I'm like, and then the next time I went out there, they had the rack height wrong, but I'm just like in panic mode because it's all new to me. And I tried to lift off anyway, really far away, and then I was just like out of gas. So doing it in meet was definitely harder. And then I pulled like 672, which was a PR, so that's good. But I think it was like I switched from like a crappy gym bar to a deadlift bar and a belt. So,
So with the training leading into the meet, there was no like scheme laid out. It was just go in, lift as heavy as you could, and do some. How did you determine the back down sets?
I really didn't know what I was doing there, because before, like, I would follow something else, like if it's like dinosaur training, lift up to something very heavy and stop. And with Power of the People, it was very planned out percentages or numbers, keeping something in the tank for the next time. But that was with, I just benched and deadlifted and overhead pressed and pull-ups. And I'd never put squats in there. So I didn't have time to like slowly do this with squatting, because I do anything squatting, also I'm super sore. And I didn't know anyone that peaked in this kind of fashion or did this. And I still don't think anyone really does it. I mean, maybe more so now with the RPE stuff, but back then there was nothing. So I just followed like kind of what a guy told me in the info, like, hey, just kind of do this, lift a little lighter now. You should be able to squat 500 for the meet.
All right.
And I did. I hit that goal, but.
So there was some linear structure?
There was some linear structure to it, but not really. And even then it's like 15, I don't know how many years ago, like 07. Yeah. So it's a long time ago now. It's hard to remember exactly. But I know I was lifting twice per week in very abbreviated, heavy, short sessions, up to something heavy, back off set.
So did anybody there know this was your first meet? So was somebody kind of helping you out?
You mean at Rum?
Yeah. Because like you don't know when to warm up.
No, I know nothing. So and I remember like thinking the night before, I'm in like the hotel room, I'm like nervous and not really eating. I'm just like, why am I doing this? Because it was pretty clear getting there too. Like, well, I'm pretty skinny and don't look like a lifter at all. You got these guys walking around that look just like, freaks. And I'd not seen that before. It was always just like, I ended up being like the skinny guy. And that was really weird because I remember like running into, Wade Hooper? Yeah. He was there and it's like, well, he's like shorter than me and way wider with his like giant ass because he could squat like crazy. And like, I look very weak and frail. So back to your question?
Well, it was being your first meet.
Yeah.
So
I didn't know what
was anybody there helping you to kind of navigate?
So my brother and my buddy came down with me because my brother had done like a meet before.
Okay.
And so I'm just like, hey, you tell me when I have to be ready and what to do, that kind of stuff. And so we're sitting there in the audience just like watching. And then all I hear on the announcement is like, okay, all middleweight lifters should be warmed up now, about to start first attempts. And I'm still sitting there. I'm just like, you idiot, you didn't tell me? Yeah. So we had to run to the back and I had to like strip weights off. Everyone's like doing like their last warm up and I had to strip it down to the bar. So I like warmed up in like 10 minutes. And I'm already like panicked because everything's just so crazy and different to me. Yeah. So it was a pretty crazy experience for that. Like,
how did you determine what your opener was going to be?
I think I even dropped it. I probably got some advice from somebody at the anvil or something. Yeah, it definitely wasn't my max. But I dropped it down to something very low. It was probably like 400 pounds or something. Yeah.
Yeah. For those listening, what you're hearing is rain.
Oh, jeez.
It's a metal top. Oh, yeah. So when the meet was over, right? So,
well, go ahead.
How did you feel then?
So I think like what I realized during this meet is like, there is like another level of obsession to this stuff. Like, because I'm pretty strong, but when I didn't have, even though I was lifting for like 9 years or something before I did the meet, there was a level of time, genetics, and drugs that I just was not any part of. And I realized that, wow, this goes up a huge level. And not only did I not win, I got fucking killed. Like, I don't know if you remember Ryan Selly. Yeah. Like I saw him, like I'm going with my 400-pound bench at the same body weight, and he's benched 518 that day at like 198, and that's just like mind blowing. Yeah, like what am I even doing here? He out squatted me, and maybe I pulled like around the same as him or a little more, so that was like okay, I could catch him there. But I knew I could improve a lot. And I wanted to come back and do better. I didn't have quite the goal in mind yet, but I was almost there. The goal, because I think probably at the second ROM is when I came to the realization of what I actually want to do. It wasn't really about doing the meets because I didn't really enjoy the meets that much. I enjoyed making friends and I enjoyed the travel and how it felt after it was over. But to be on stage and lift weights, like I don't have to, like I don't get that much joy out of it. I could do it just like, I'm sure if there was like a closet with some equipment, like you're fine with that. Like no one had to see me do it.
through your meet history, it was pretty much just rum. So it was just one meet a year. So when that meet was over, had you already decided that you were going to go back the next year?
Yeah.
And then how did you approach your training from 1 to 2?
I added, I think I added one extra day. So I think I had like a squat day, a bench day, and a deadlift day. And I think on the squat day, I did a little bit of deadlifting. And on the bench day, I did overhead pressing and pull-ups. And on the deadlift day, I probably did like a little bit of assistant squatting.
Mm-hmm.
And that's it. And I had a long off season, so I got to do whatever I want in there and try stuff and experiment.
So what were you experimenting during that time?
It's hard to remember because I've never had a coach, nor did I want a coach. So it's hard to remember exactly what I did in that time. I probably just did a lot of squatting, benching, and deadlifting. I maybe, if 531 was around then, I maybe started dabbling with that because I know I did do a period of doing 531, and that may have been up until that point.
Were you taking time off after the meet?
No, just go back to lifting weights.
Yeah, so just right back in.
Yeah, there's nothing to take time off from. I totaled like 1,500 and something, like 198. It's like that's not that hard to recover from. Yeah, just go back to lifting weights again.
Mm-hmm.
But I think maybe it was rum 2. I did a lot better at rum 2. I gained weight. Like I realized I probably had to fill out my weight class. I didn't try to stay small. You know, some people or a lot of people, they keep looking down. Like I went in at like a soaking about 198.
Yeah.
And it's easy to come to terms with numbers down. Like, oh, the 181s, if I can get down there and get stronger, then I'm going to, do this and that, and just a whole fantasy game versus the sport is about getting stronger. And people, I think, forget that you'll do better in the sport by filling out your leverages, not getting smaller and weaker.
Mm-hmm.
So I realized that getting stronger was a lot more fun than, being weak and trying to just starve myself down to something competitive. So I just took the massive hit up front and just like, hey, I'm going into the 220s and I'm going to fill out the 220s and see what I can do there.
How did you go about doing that? Just eating whatever you wanted, or was there some kind of plan behind it?
There was never a plan behind it. It was a lot of eating, of course. Like, do you want to know what I ate? Like,
no, not really, but it's
so that's funny.
Yeah, as we progress through these meets, things are going to become a little bit more dialed in.
Yeah, I drank a lot of milk and I ate a lot of cookies, and I did that for like 8 years probably.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I was probably doing that for that meat. I remember like eating I'd get like a big tub of like cream. It was like thick cream. And I'd eat that with like yogurt. So I'm just getting a ton of calories that are really easy to get in.
Mm-hmm.
I remember doing things like, this is when I still drank protein shakes, but like coconut milk, like not coconut water, but milk.
Yeah.
So it's like a can of coconut milk and you put that in with a protein shake, and I'd even put more cream in there and like shake the hell out of it and then like have it sitting in the fridge all day so I could drink it. But
mm-hmm.
I don't know if you ever drank coconut milk, but it's garbage.
Yeah.
It sits in your gut. Like, I don't like throw up easily, but that's going to make you throw up.
Mm-hmm.
Just so much fat content. It's a lot of calories in one little can.
Yeah. So
I was doing stuff like that. I eat a lot of poutine because, I eat a lot of poutine because it's Canada.
Yeah. So when it came to the net raw Unity 2,
mm-hmm.
how much were your numbers up?
So I went from, I think, a 1565 to like a 1725 total,
mm-hmm.
somewhere around there. And I think it was like a 570 something squat, maybe a 440 bench, which just I matched my touch and go bench, but I did a pause in a meet, which I found a lot harder. And I think I pulled 705. And I think I weighed 212 or something around there. So I was filling out the 220s, but I think I still got out totaled by Ryan Selly, who I thought I was going to go down to the first meet and crush.
Yeah.
And he crushed me, and it was really good for me.
So each one of these, your goal was to win? Would that be safe to say?
My goal at first was to improve. And I think, so something happened at like Rum 2 there where Matt Kroc was at both Rum 1 and Rum 2.
Yeah.
And I got to spend some time with him when he was out in Toronto doing like a muscle tech photo shoot and stuff. So I talked to him a lot at both Rums. And I remember asking him like, hey, what do you think you could total? Like, you're always in gear. Like, and he told me 2,000, and like my head lit up like, whoa, like this guy was like the man back then.
Mm-hmm.
So in order for me to be the man, I have to beat these numbers. And I right away, like, that was like what I wanted to do. And but like, again, like just to the whole level thing, like Kroc was huge. Yeah, like he's my weight class and he's like 2 of me.
Yes.
Yeah, it's insane. I couldn't believe it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, but that's the level you have to go to be good at something.
So after the second one, did the training change?
The training for sure kept changing. It changed a lot. I think still leading into, I think I was still using something that would be consistent with what other people could imagine as a thing at the time. Like, you know, starting lighter, building up to something heavy, doing backup sets, linear progression, doing some things in the off season to build up weaknesses. But I was mostly still using just like the straight weights, which I mostly used anyway. Yes, just regular, probably one squat. No, I probably added another day leading into the Rum 3. It's hard to remember exactly.
But during these times, was there any focus on the technical aspects of these lifts? You know, to try to fine tune those, or was your technique pretty solid before you went into the first one?
No, my technique was for sure not good. For sure not on squat. And my technique changed a lot on the bench too. Because I think before I would kind of like let the bar almost like touch lightly. And then slowly over time, I got really good at letting it sink and then using a ton of heat.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it's not heave, but like a lot of leg drive and getting a lot from my, just like my structure.
Yeah.
And I didn't do that at first. So that definitely changed, but that's not something somebody told me. It's just something I figured out through time. Deadlift is something I really liked at first and started to really hate, which I think is kind of normal progression for older lifters as they go, unless you're like a freak built to deadlift. Then I think those people just kind of take advantage of the bar and the sumo technique. But yeah, for Rum 3, the standouts for that are, I remember, so at this point there was not an IPF Raw Worlds, and Rum was getting all of their lifters. Like all of these guys were taking off their gear and coming over to Rum to compete. So Rum 3 was massive.
So that's the one that Mike Toucher went
Yeah,
into?
Mike T, Susie Hartwig was there. David Ricks was there at 50 years old.
Yeah.
Kicked my ass. Yeah. So like they were getting a lot of attention. And then IPF came out during that time and told them that they're going to ban all their lifters if they do this meet. And they said on what grounds, and it was because they started calling a Raw Unity like an international meet, which apparently is a rule that if you can't do other international meets if you're an IPF lifter. And at that time, I was the only non-American lifter at Rum, so they were using me as the person to call it an international meet. So the IPF lifters all said like, well, give us the Raw Worlds or we're just going to keep going here. And I think right the next year they have an IPF Raw Worlds.
So, meanwhile, it's still your third meet.
Yeah, it's still my third meet, yeah. But I had no interest in IPF. I think at first when I started in powerlifting, I'm like, yeah, like if you go to the Olympics someday, they're talking about they want to make you go to the Olympics. And then I realized pretty quickly that one, that's not going to happen. And two, it probably shouldn't happen. Like I think you probably just ruin the sport. Yeah. What do you think there's no powerlifting in the Olympics?
Well, they've been trying to get it in the Olympics ever since when I first started, which goes way back to the 80s. I have no idea. I've just always kind of come to the conclusion that it's just never going to be there.
No.
They already have weightlifting, which kind of is a weightlifting sport or a strength sport. They don't need another one. And I don't know, especially at that time, I don't know if there was enough participation to kind of justify it.
Because maybe
when because you came in,
now there is.
Now there is, because when you came in, I remember trying to figure out a little bit earlier than that, like 2002, 2004, how many total lifters there were, and because there wasn't open powerlifting. I mean, there was nowhere you could really go see. No. You had Powerlifting USA, then you had Powerlifting Watch, and that might show 50 or 100 people.
Yeah.
And, the perception was there's hundreds of thousands of lifters, and, I'm trying to figure out exactly what it is. So I got a hold of Mike Lambert to figure out.
You looked into it.
Yeah. I'm like, how many people subscribe to this magazine?
Yeah.
Then I knew most lifters, half probably don't.
Yeah.
Then I would talk to, I think at the time I was part of the IPA. So I know how many people were in the IPA, which is pretty much all multiply.
Yeah.
And so I doubled that and said, well, it's probably the same that's in the APF, because it just seemed to bounce back and forth popularity wise. And I came up with around 20 grand total lifters.
Yeah.
And I posted something about it, and Ricky Crane sent me an email saying that he thought it was right about the same.
Okay.
And because out of that, I'm trying to figure out as well, how many are multiply and how many are single ply.
Yeah.
Raw really wasn't even an equation at the time.
Probably more single ply at that time.
Oh, way more.
Yeah.
Way more.
It's more international.
Yeah. I figured about 3,000 or 4,000 multiply and 16,000 single ply.
And they all lived in like Ohio?
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Pretty much. And over the years, the number of multiply lifters, it hasn't dropped. It's still about 2,000 or 3,000. Yeah, but there's probably 200,000 people in the sport now.
Still, it's the same though.
So the sport, blew up during this time frame, and this initial raw time was interesting, right? Because there's a group of you guys that were committed to it, and the backlash was brutal.
Yeah.
And then it's hard to explain how brutal unless you were actually in it and seeing it.
Yeah.
It was brutal. And I knew people that were raw, and I knew people single ply, and I knew people multiply. And it was very strange how cultish each one of these became, where now it's not so much that way as it used to be before, but it was like, you're all still doing the same shit.
Yeah, exactly.
But if I would have a gathering and people all come in the gym to train from all those disciplines, they all got along.
Yeah, yeah.
It was just online. Everybody was a dipshit.
It was.
Yeah. But it was brutal. But probably about, you would be able to know better than I, after like Raw 6 or 7, it started to shift.
It did.
Because the IPF created Raw, then all the other federations started to slowly.
I think maybe it started to shift before that, but maybe it would just have a bias on both sides. But the Olympic thing to me sounded really cool at first, but here's my take on it. I think it looks bad to like an audience, and while I respect the weights the women lift, I think especially women benching maybe the worst for the audience, because if you compare it to like a woman weightlifter going up on stage, there's like a whole bunch of these big plates. She's up there alone and she lifts it overhead. It looks really hardcore. And then some of the women benching, they have such a giant arc. Yeah. And because they're 50 kilo discs, you're not going to see a lot of discs, and you're going to see like 3 spotters around for this bar to not move very far. And I think that hurts us.
Yeah. And it's how do you capture it and portray it in a way that can be something people are going to stop and watch? Yeah. Where Strongman coming out around Christmas time or wherever it would come out, it was fun to watch that. Yeah. Because it was different type of stuff where meets are boring as hell. Yeah. Yeah. So it's like you just got too many people on the platform too. It's just, I don't think it looks good to an audience. Yeah. Even though it's awesome, but. So as you moved from 3 to 4, how did things progress then? Because you stayed the same weight all the way through. Well, actually, you stayed the same weight class all the way through. So, yeah. So, did you cut weight ever? Yes.
A lot?
Not a lot because I hated it.
Yeah. It's the worst.
Yeah.
So I remember for Rum 3, because you could win like the weight class and you could win overalls, and they had like a light, medium, heavy for overall, and that was done by Wilkes at the time. And I think I weighed 220 on the dot still, and I'm like, okay, let me do like a practice cut and see how. Just do it for fun and see if I get a little lower and it helps my Wilkes for the overall.
Mm-hmm.
So I did. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to try a practice cut. So I got a sauna suit, and I go into the hotel bathroom and shut the door, towels down so no hot water can escape. So I wear the sauna suit, and I just sit in the shower with the hot water on me, like without moving for 2 hours straight. I'm like, let's just see what happens. So there's no water loading, nothing. It was just like, let's see what happens with hot water. So basically I'm boiling myself to death for 2 hours. And in 2 hours, I did 10 pounds. So 10 pounds in 2 hours, I was like, wow, that was super easy.
Yeah.
Like, so I should just do this more often. I'm going to get way bigger. And it helped. I ended up getting like whatever overall, maybe second overall or something. I won my weight class, but that was not as important anymore. The end goal was way more important at that time, and meets to me were just like something I had to do, because the end goal was once on Powerlifting Watch, when they finally compiled like records, and you got to see like what was the highest raw total of all time. Someone went back and looked at all these things and put it on Powerlifting Watch. It's not like now with raw open powerlifting, but with this, they finally gave us a number. And I think at that time it was like Andre Belayev maybe, with like a really low 2,000 or something total. So I had that goal in mind very quickly. And meets were just something you had to do, because I don't know. I mean, I guess I can guess this for you, but gym lifters were looked down on.
Oh yeah. Well, it doesn't count.
No, exactly.
Yeah.
So I think nowadays gym lifters get way too much clout.
Yeah.
Versus back in our day, you had to do a meet or you're just nothing.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's people would tell you, what they bench, and it didn't count. It didn't matter.
It didn't count. Well,
if you didn't do it a meet, it could have happened, but who knows how.
But now people are doing like their pet gym lift that they're really good at. You see things like, okay, let's say they have a pet bench press lift. They're very good at bench press. Then they're putting the elbow wraps on now, and they're like bouncing it. They're getting like a good number. It'd be like 600 and something. But then if you look at their other lifts, it's like about the same, like a 600 squat, a 600 deadlift too. And then it's like, oh, well, the person then maybe has to cut weight, or they're in a weight class that's not very good. And then they take the elbow wraps off and they do it in a meet, and suddenly that total is like not very good. But on the internet, it looks awesome.
Yeah.
So now they're getting way more attention probably than they should. But times change.
Yeah. As you moved into Raw Unity 4, I think is where we're at now.
Yes. Rum 4, that's when it got bigger. That's when Sam Bird came.
Yes.
That's when Dan Green came, who was like, that guy's pretty strong, but I'll forget about him. I forgot all about Dan. Like, I met him and everything. I liked him, but didn't really talk to him that much. Sam was like, was going to be weird to see, because he like, I don't know, like Sam, I think maybe has the best strength feats that I've seen, like the most impressive of all time, because he can literally squat. Like, he squats like 800 raw in sleeves at like 220. He's massive. Like, his shoulders are huge. But he can squat like 700 pounds, like faster than we can get out of a chair. Like, boom, like so fast. But he had like that 1,200 pound squat, and we're just waiting to see what he can actually squat when he takes the suit off. It was somewhere in the upper sevens or something, very fast. His bench on that meet, his bench always struggled, and he was like a hit or miss deadlift kind of thing. So Sam didn't win that meet. It was actually Jay Neera won that meet. Where
did you finish in that one?
I got second to Jay. I believe at that point is when, remember John Bros?
Yeah.
And he was big on the internet. If you were just like reading everything on the internet, and he had like his high frequency Bulgarian style training that ended up becoming kind of popular after that. But he's the guy that kind of brought it to powerlifting. And people don't know that, but he was using it on his lifter, Pat Mendez, who's a weightlifter. And it's like work up to a max and do back off sets basically as long as you can.
Every day.
Yeah. And while I didn't do it every day, I did do it 5 days per week. And it worked. It worked for a while.
Now with this 5 days per week, is that Monday through Friday? Or was there's no break in there?
No break in there.
So walk me through this. So you're working up and maxing out.
Yeah.
Every time.
Every time.
And then the back down sets, are they progressing in any way?
Yes, as much as I could. So up to the top single and then come back down and start doing triples. And it's like, that triple is okay. I'm going to add 20 pounds. That triple is okay. I'm going to add a little bit more weight. Oh, that's a double. And then it's just like, maybe you get like 4 or 5 back off sets. It was a lot.
So when it dropped off of the triple, the back off sets were done?
No, just whatever I felt like I could squeeze in. Yeah, I just kept going and going. And then on days I'd have to bench after that too. But I was like, I worked in a gym at the time, so it was not a stressful life for me. I was not working a lot. I was lucky to have my wife as a backup for all this stuff.
And you were able to recover from this?
I don't know why. Yeah, I don't know why. And I did this in an off season. So there was no supplements used for this until you got to the time for the meet. But I went from I think I went from 620 squat to like a 685 squat or something. But yeah, it was up to a max. The worst thing I got from it is the elbow tendonitis.
In the elbow or in the bicep?
Yeah, down the brachialis.
Yeah.
And then I even got some of that horse liniment you guys have. So put that on. But when you're at like a 10, it's maybe brings it down to like a 9. Like a 10 is just too high for anything.
Yeah.
But yeah, I remember like laying on the floor, like almost in tears after, like, oh my God, what am I doing?
Were you able to bench?
With tears?
Yeah, because that kind of was worse than the squat when that would flare up.
Yeah, it would, because you get lower and then it just like, you lose everything in the bottom. I benched too. I just willed myself through this somehow because it was working for a long time. So I'm not going to stop when it's working. Yeah. No matter how much pain you're in. Like, how much pain did you put yourself in doing your stuff? If it works, you're not going to stop until something makes you stop. Like, actually, physically, something has to break to stop.
What made you stop doing that?
I did the meet, and
so you trained that way for the whole year?
Yeah, for a whole year. Yeah, and I did decently. I pulled like a 765 on like a bar, the stiffest bar you've ever seen, and that was just like one deadlift day a week, going up to like something moderately heavy, and then slowly adding to it. It was all about the squat. No
accessories at all?
No. Who could do accessories?
That's what,
when you're squatting like 5 days per week, just up to a max. But yeah, what was your question?
If you were doing that all the way through.
Oh, right. Yeah, I did all the way to the meet. And why I stopped is, so I stopped because at Rum 4, I got out squatted by 1, Sam, and 2, Nira. So both those guys out squatted me. So I'm like, what are they doing? And that's when I kind of moved into something else again after that.
What did that look like after that? Because you got a whole year between each one. So there's a lot of time.
It's a lot of time. Yeah.
And you didn't have any desire to do any meets in between?
No. Because 1, there was like no raw meets. 2, this was a big meet. Like, this is one people were looking at. And this is the one that, in Canada, there were not many strong lifters to compare myself to. I didn't want to stay in the smaller pond. I'd rather go to the big pond and just get killed because I think it's better for your mentality long term. Seeing people lift giant weights changes your mentality to what is possible. But back in Canada, we had like Jay Nira and other strong lifter that dropped off kind of quick is Greg Doucette. So I was comparing myself to basically those guys, but both of them came to Rum too. So this is why we all just kind of met at Rum. So Jay out squatted me and he won the meet. And then Sam obviously out squatted me forever. So I looked at what Jay was doing for his squat and I implemented that in the best way I could. Not right away, but eventually during the year, I'm like, let me try it this way. And actually doing that became my main way of preparing for a meet. Not exactly a copy, but taking what he did and trying it for myself and then changing it a little bit. And that was been my best training method for peaking for a meet.
Yeah. And what does that look like?
So I feel like this is the most underused method in all of powerlifting. Like when you look around, you see like top set AMRAP. You see people like using like their feelings to gauge everything, like one kind of heavy single and then maybe a back off set or a double, you know, with the RP stuff. And this is just like treating this lift like a skill that you're trying to get very, very good at. If the goal is to get very good at moving a bar from point A to point B, then maybe you should just do that over and over and over and over. So that motor pattern is so greased that when you get under a bar, it's just perfect. That's when your body knows what to do. It's kind of the opposite of Westside in a way. It's like Westside tells you the more you do something without changing it, you're going to get worse at it. But so this was taking a sub max weight, like let's say taking like a 6 rep max or something and doing triples with it until they grind. So set after set after set after set is what I did. Starting lighter and just adding weight each week to that set.
How far out from the meet? Okay, so if it's, you know, a 700-pound squat and you're jumping 20 pounds a week, you know, are you starting at 400?
Yeah. No, that's too low, but I would start somewhere in the 500s, in the upper 500s, around 600, and maybe make like 15-pound jumps kind of thing, depending on how I felt. The tendonitis ended up being hard for the squat to do this, but I did do it a lot, and it did break me into the 7.0. I think I squatted 7.05 or something doing this method.
You do the same thing for the bench and deadlift?
Yeah, I did for bench and deadlift. It worked for me. It worked best for bench pressing. Like the bench, I benched like 495 for 4 is my best. And to start that training cycle, maybe like 12 weeks out, I started with like 365 or 385 doing triples, as many as I could. And then when that bar would start to feel like it's going to grind, I would finish it with not quite like a real AMRAP, but like a speed AMRAP. So I'm doing unbroken, let's say I'm doing unbroken reps, never a rest pause. So I'm not doing like, let's say I did like 8 or 9 triples and the 10th set is like an AMRAP. It's as many as I can do where they're perfectly point A to point B. No stopping at the top, taking a rest, trying to get another one. It's just like I'm going all out as long as they stay the same speed.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how I did it for what I found to work best for benching.
So when you go into, and I assume still no accessories are being thrown in there?
Accessories. So I wouldn't do a lot of accessories. I would mostly work with barbell weight. But I would, in the off season, I would switch out lifts. Like I'm not going to just squat, you know, sets of 5 in the off season. This is doing the same thing I need to do coming to a meet. So in the off season, it's like I'm going to front squat or use a safety squat bar, but I'm going to do a lot of work with it.
Over that same duration, a couple months.
Yeah. Like I'm going to, or like instead of bench pressing, I'm going to use like, I'm going to dip or something. I'm going to do dips for like 8 weeks of just like as many as I can do, like up to something heavy, a whole bunch of back off sets. And I'm just going to work the hell out of this movement because 1, you're still working the prime movers, obviously. And 2, it takes me away from the bench press. I want to get away from it so that when I come back to it, I should have built some more muscle mass on my frame. And then benching is going to be kind of a little bit new again. So when I get back on the bench, it should feel like I should be able to get almost newbie gains again. Yeah. It's like I'm going to take this new muscle and I'm going to teach it how to fire properly on a bench press. And I got bench press over and over and over and over again until it's like perfect.
So when that was pulled out and say the dips are put in, is it just that movement or are there other movements that are put in as well?
In the off season, there could be others, but not much of others. I'm going to do a ton of dips and then maybe like an incline dumbbell press for a set or something.
Okay.
The off season to me this is later on in my lifting career. This is not then. Then I was probably still jumping around and trying different things. But the off season to me later on became an obsession with building my 80%. So if I can build my 80% squat, bench, deadlift, throughout a whole year, if I can take whatever my 80% is, add 15 pounds to it plus a rep, that usually comes out stronger when you peak it. Mm-hmm. And the best way for me to build my 80% was just running waves between 70 and 80%. So I would start with like 70%, let's say with a squat, and I would do 5 sets of 5. And on the final set, sometimes I do 6 sets, 7 sets, mostly 5, but then I would do an AMRAP, a speed AMRAP. And then the next week I would do 72.5, and then 75, 77.5, and then 80. And then I would go backwards, add 10 pounds and start the whole process over again. Mm-hmm. And this was inspired by a little bit by 531, the AMRAP. But I needed more work in there, and then also no deloads, because deload to me is just a huge waste of time. Mm-hmm. Did you guys deload back at Westside?
It depends how you want to consider that. I mean, if it's a 3-week wave, mm-hmm. Say even the way that you're doing it, if you're going from 70% to 85%, isn't going back down to 70% a deload.
Yeah, it's an unload.
So it's
right.
In that regard, yeah. But as far as how most people would define it, no.
No, because, well, that's an unload. You're unloading.
Yeah.
If you're deloading and like taking a day, you've just decided that, no, today is like 60% and I'm doing like, 4 sets of 5 or something. It's super easy. To me, you're just wasting time.
Yeah, I kind of always looked at it as it's going to happen one way or another. Mm-hmm. Right. So either I'm going to tweak something, which is going to be a deload, or a holiday is going to come around, or I'm going to have to miss training for whatever reason.
That happens.
And it always would freak me out about the deload thing, because what if I do the deload, but then that next week life happens?
Yeah, exactly.
And I can't train, and now that's 2 weeks down.
Oh man, it's worse than that. If you do the math on it, like if you're picking 1 week every 4 weeks where you're on purpose not lifting heavy weights, and let's say you do each lift twice per week, that's like 24, 25 times a year that you decided that I'm not lifting heavy weights today, no matter what. I don't think that you can figure out your body that well. Like, you're a human. There's so many factors involved that you should decide that I'm not going to lift weights on these days.
Yeah.
Like, I think I'm willing to bet within those 25 times, or even if it's once per week that you do the lift and it's 12 times per year, I'm willing to bet you were going to have a good day in there.
Yeah.
And probably more than one good day. So,
well, where it can get tricky would be you're doing 1 or 2 lifts per day. Mm-hmm. Right. So you're kind of managing the fatigue just in those 2 lifts. Mm-hmm. There are people that are going to do those 1 or 2 lifts and then 5 or 6 accessories.
Yeah.
Which we could say is junk volume.
Yeah.
And in that case, they probably would need a deload, because the accumulated fatigue is going to be so high because of the things that they were doing that's really not helping them in the first place.
Yeah.
Where the answer would be just don't do those things.
Yeah. I would rather be like consistently putting out the effort and being able to show up at the gym and at least try. Like, the only time I ever had a planned deload and did it was like right before a meet, like 10 days or whatever. That was the deload. Anything between that, I'm trying to lift weights. Mm-hmm. Like, if you're a lifter, lift.
Now, how would you, after the meet, and you mentioned earlier you would go off, right? So after the meet, when you go off in the PEDs, how are you adjusting your percentages?
So in the earlier days, when I would go off, I would obsessively chase my on number. Like, I would will it to catch that number, and I would catch that number somehow. Mm-hmm. So that when I would then go on again, then I'm already starting at where I left off. So I was not adjusting percentages, because I like percentages as a guideline, but I'm not going to just stick to a percentage, because, again, we're humans and humans don't really work like that.
Yeah. So on those days, granted, now we're past the squatting everyday thing. So that's just grinding. It's essentially what it is.
Yeah, there's a lot. You mean with the squatting every day?
Yeah.
It's grinding.
But once you get past that and it's squatting once or twice a week or whatever the plan's laid out for that, and you're working up, if it doesn't feel like it's there, and because there's a difference between it really not being there and you just not thinking it's there,
right? And
you have to make that choice. If you knew it wasn't going to be there, did you keep it back down?
I never. it's hard. Like I was never smart about this where I'm like, oh, I'm going to save it. I really pushed. Like, this was like a very deliberate thing that I was really thinking about. Like the end goal was the all-time world record total. I thought it was going to be in sleeves, ended up being in reps, but this was my goal for the whole thing. So I was almost frantic. Like on the outside, I did not look frantic. It looks like I took everything slow. And in some ways I feel like maybe I took it too slow and being like smart about it. But I was really pushing. Yeah. So like, even though I don't believe in grinding now, especially because I think that's just a recipe for disaster and you're teaching yourself to build in a sticking point. That's another discussion, but I was really pushing. So
how old were you at that time?
I started powerlifting when I was 25, 26. So it's not like I came into powerlifting for fun.
Yeah.
Like it was kind of fun. There's fun things I got out of it, which is mostly friendships and be able to meet cool people like you and stuff like that. Like just lifting weights, I was reading your stuff. This was not about powerlifting. But when it came to powerlifting, it was very quickly, it became, I think I can do this. So I'm going to do this. Like there was zero doubt that I was going to do it. Yeah, it's really weird. Like that's kind of like a question too, to you also is like, why does all this stuff work? Like, why should squatting every day work? Why should West Side work? Why should like one set till failure work? Why should being a bodybuilder and then trying this stuff? Like, why does this all work? It's all so different. What does it come down to?
Well, when you look at top lifters across the spectrum, everybody does something different, right? So I think there's a lot of intangible things that can't be measured. You know, one example I like to give of that is, say it's a top triple that you're going to do.
Okay.
You can do that in a confident state, and you can also do it in a state where you take it out and it's like, oh shit, this feels heavy. Yeah. And I do believe that the way you're going to recover from each of those being exactly the same weight is going to change. Right? Because neurally, one way you're not as confident as the other. And you can see this in lifters and meets, and even you can see as soon as they take a weight out in their face if they're going to make it or not. If you've been doing this long enough, you can see immediately what that is. And the skilled lifters figure whatever this shit is out, you know, to be able to do that, to be able to have the confidence, and then have the confidence that it's going to be there. Like for yourself, the 2000 is going to be there. It may not be this year or next year, but eventually it's going to be there. It's gonna hit, and then mentally, there's no doubt. It's just what do I need to do to make that happen? And staying in that realm for a long time. That's the difference, is the long time. You know,
so you think it's the time?
I think it's definitely the mindset for sure. But then it's also the time. And I kind of want to say patience, but is anybody ever fucking patient? No. I mean, none of us, we all want to lift more than we ever did. You know, so we can tell younger lifters, look, it takes a long time. You need to be patient. But you got to remember how we all were. You know, we're all looking for the same things.
I was not patient. I looked patient on the outside. Look at Jeremy. He's still lifting weights, you know. Then it's like 8th year or whatever, and he's still just grinding away.
Yeah. So you had 9 years training before you competed.
Yeah, you know, but it was more like, you know, bench and curls and
but it's a base and a 400 bench.
Plus all the BJJ I did. I was always doing something. Even as like a child, I was doing things. So.
Yeah. Then as we go to RUM 5, that's 14 years now.
Yeah, right.
You know, of training.
Of frantic.
Well, it gets more frantic, you know,
gets way more frantic,
as things go on and you get closer to it. And it's a determination thing, it's a mindset. There's things that we just can't measure.
It has to be the will of the lifter. I think that's all it is. I feel like for me personally, I just willed this stuff along. Like, what else can it be when you're in that much pain, getting under another, you know, max squat during your training week, like, or just like grinding out triples after? Like, it has to be the will of the lifter.
Well, that's the difference between, you know, the will of the lifter during that time to still have the faith that it's going to go where you want it to go. Then the other one that starts questioning everything. That's the difference.
Yeah, there is a question.
Right? Because then there's the question that maybe I can't do this. And then that doubt becomes a spiraling thing.
It's like a backup plan. It's like backup plans are terrible.
Yeah, you want to avoid people that will embrace that. I always said you want to have enablers.
Yeah.
Then you want to have realists.
Yeah.
But you don't want negative people.
No.
Because that will pull it all down.
Yeah, I don't believe in backup plans for anything. Like, did you have a backup plan when you build this?
Not really.
No. Even whatever.
I could be a trainer, I suppose. I mean, that's the ultimate backup plan.
Yeah, but you were not like, okay, I'm going to keep my this and this going so I can coach people. I'm going to keep training clients in this gym once per week because in case this doesn't go well, there's no in case. It's just doing what you like to do.
Yeah. Now I will say, with the backup plan, when competing was by far my highest priority, I'm still getting an education. I'm using my downtime.
Yeah.
But even the education was to help my training.
So you can lift weights.
Yeah. So I found things in the downtime to do that would help.
Right.
The training part of it. Yeah. So it's still 100% in.
100% lifting weights.
But kind of building something for when it's over. But when you're in it, you never think it's going to be over. No. I didn't. You
didn't?
Well, right? I mean, we all know.
Yeah.
But I didn't sit there and think, at this total, I'm going to be done.
Yeah.
Or at this number, I'm going to be done. Or if I win this, I'm going to be done. I was there's two ways out, the kind of the way that you said it. Here's what I want to do.
Yeah.
Then once it's done, it becomes a mind fuck a little bit, which we'll get to. Yeah. Or the sport takes you out.
Yeah.
That's kind of the trajectory of both. Yeah. I guess hobbyists, but we're not talking about that. I mean, once you're in it the way you're in it, you're kind of.
Yeah. I almost feel like you said, hobbyist. I almost feel like a hobbyist needs a better action plan than someone like you or I who have this weird end goal that no one can talk us out of. Like it seems like it's whatever you are okay with lifting. Like when you were first starting out and, you go on West Side, I don't know what you squatted then. It was probably like in shitty gear. Maybe you squatted like in the 6s or something and they're talking about 1,000. You probably were like, I'm not okay with that yet. Like, I can't see myself under 1,000 pound squat. But in time, you mentally became okay with that. Then that's it. Like, not only you became okay with it, it was who you became. Like,
yeah. Well, my whole career was, once I knew this is what I really wanted to do, which was at a young age, it became finding people stronger than me to train with, and later as the sport matured, it really became finding the meets that you can go to, like you were talking about, where you're going to get your dick handed to you.
Yeah.
Because your perception of strength changes.
Yeah.
You walk into the Anvil gym and everybody there is benching over 600 pounds or whatever it's going to be.
No, just Clint. But still, they weren't lifting raw. But yeah.
But if you walk in a gym and, a 400 bench is like normal.
Yeah.
Some people at that time would say like a 350 sucks.
Yeah.
Right. If you're in that environment, your aspirations are going to be different.
Yeah, they change very
than
quickly.
If you're the strongest person in the gym with a 205 pound bench.
Right. So people should not, I shouldn't say should not do backyard meets, but it shouldn't be their goal if they want to be very good at this. Like, you should leave and go to the biggest meet you possibly can go to as early as possible.
Yes.
Because I guess you have the internet now to scroll and see these big numbers.
That's not the same though.
No, and we didn't have that at the time, but it's still got to be something because numbers keep going up.
Yeah, I mean, seeing it is completely a different thing
it is.
Than watching it online because you're experiencing that.
Yeah, especially when you don't know like the structure of what these people look like that move these weights. That changes you. Like, again, seeing like someone like Matt Kroc in the same weight class as me was huge. Like so much lean mass. So
then there's people that are smaller than you.
Yeah,
outlifting you too, which makes you think, what's wrong with me?
Yeah.
Like what the hell?
Yeah, what's wrong with me?
Yeah. And so as you moved into, which one was it? 6 that was a DQ that you bought?
No, Rum 5. I remember. Okay, yeah, Rum 5. That was in Texas. I was trying to think of what happened there. I remember I cut weight for that and it was easy. I probably didn't take the recomp of the weight cuts that seriously, and I would cramp like crazy, like to the point where like my hands like would get stuck closed. And
that was a deadlift.
Yeah, I couldn't open them. Like I couldn't even do it with my pants, kind of thing. Like my hands were literally stuck closed, and people would have to like hold them open for me, which I learned from. But yeah, that was I ended up pulling my bicep really bad on my opening deadlift. I thought I tore it, and maybe I did. Something in there was very tight, and it took like maybe 8 months to be able to even turn my hand over and do a deadlift with like more than like a plate, and then it just magically went away because it needed to go away for the meat that was coming up. Yeah, it just went away. Yeah, like I even went and got like they ultrasounded it and x-rayed, and like I can't see what's wrong with it, but something in there was pulled and very tight. Like I couldn't turn my arm over. So maybe there was something missing there. I don't know. But
did that impact your bench?
No, because it happened on my opener deadlift. So
no, I'm saying training wise for the 8 months.
Nope. Because I could keep my hands like pronated, but going like supinated just did not work. And I wasn't going to switch back the other way because I've never done that. Yeah. And that feels just ridiculous.
So when your training started to come more in line, you know, after you took what Jay was doing and kind of remodeled all that, what did that look like? You know, say a training week.
So again, the off season, I did a lot of experimenting. I did a lot of stuff where I wasn't doing the main lifts. I probably discovered front squatting in there to build up my quad strength because I used to do like the squat morning where I'd get stuck doing a good morning coming out of the hole. And I think like conventional wisdom was always like, oh, you got to do more good mornings because your back is weak. But realistically, my legs were weak because if my legs were strong, I'd be able to stand upright and not use my back because really what I'm using is my back. So I started front squatting probably in there. And then for the meat, like I can remember the meat cycles a lot better than
that's what I'm talking about.
Off season because off season was just building my 80%. But a meat cycle would look something like, again, like starting with squatting, it would be somewhere in the upper 500s, multiple triples with an AMRAP somewhere I'm getting tired, add 15 pounds per week. Bench would be the same, multiple triples, adding like 10 pounds per week. Deadlift maybe was the same for a little while, and then I maybe turned into something else because I started having problems with my grip. But I didn't recognize it. I think I didn't recognize it as a grip issue early enough.
What do you mean?
So I would drop my deadlifts in a meet only. In the gym, it would happen, but not really too often. And I didn't have a dropping a deadlift problem until I started like squatting and benching bigger. So I figured my hands were just getting beat up. And I thought during the week they were getting beat up too, because I remember buddies, Nira and Willie Albert, they went to Russia and they competed against Andrei Belayev. And he was ridiculously strong, had the all-time world record when they first kind of came up with these things. And he would pull with straps 100% of the time, right even into the up to the platform. He would pull with straps even in the back room in his warm-ups. So I thought maybe I'm just too beat up. So instead of like doing a lot of grip work, I relaxed my hands. I didn't do any grip work. Like my hands were just beat up is the problem. But really, eventually I started doing grip work and that worked better than not doing it.
What was the grip work?
The grip work was just double overhand deadlifts. You know, like a gripper, you don't crush.
Yeah.
It's like, it's kind of your fingers, but not really. It's isometric. So literally just a 2 overhand deadlift and, you know, grinding through that part from your knee to the rest of the way and squeezing and thinking about that when I'm doing it really just made me squeeze better. And that worked out the best, but I found that in a way too late. Yeah. I mean, it worked out for me in the end, but if I found it earlier, I think it would have been better. So that's one regret I have, is not going way deeper into the grip work.
So then how did Rum 6 go?
Rum 6 was a grip issue. I was like, needed to pull 777 to break 2000. And again, just somebody opening up my hand right at the very top, and I still couldn't recognize it. I won that meet, but there were people missing. Like Dan was the man at that point. Dan was on a tear, and I competed against Dan at run 4 and 5. So I got ahead of him in run 4. Run 5, I got hurt, so he ended up totaling ahead of me. And then I think within that time, he exploded. And I think maybe I don't know if he had the all-time world record total at that point. He may have in sleeves, but I was very close. But just with I needed that deadlift to happen.
Were you still cutting at this time?
Yeah, I was still cutting. So
when did you figure out how to do that?
Man, so
because the first one was easy. I can't imagine.
The first one was so easy that I had zero worries for the next time I did it, which was at the next meet. I actually remember sitting in the mall eating like Chick-fil-A the night before weigh-ins, or the day before, and it was actually Nira saying, "Aren't you worried about making weight?" And I weighed like 233 or something. I got really fat, and I was like, "No, like 2 hours is 10 pounds, so 13 pounds, 2.5 hours." And well, I was so wrong. And it's like, yeah, it was like I had beginner's luck or something. So I go into the shower and start boiling myself to death kind of thing. And it's just like hours and hours and hours, and it's not coming off. I think like people like, they do it where they spend like all week kind of like water loading and like kind of bringing calories down, and they bring their body fat down a little bit. And I never wanted to do that because I never wanted to affect my lifting like during the training. And I just figured like the shortest amount of time possible that I can be this weight, the better. But I never wanted to take diuretics because I never wanted that to be in my system after either to shed the weight. Cause I'm like, I don't know if I can get the weight back on if I start taking these things. Little did I know they would have worked better, but I never took them. So again, I would just boil myself to death, and it's like make weight before you boil. And it was like, I think I was in there for like 5 hours, and I finally checked, and I'm still not there on weight. And it doesn't sound like much, 5 hours, but when you're just sitting in a sauna suit with boiling water on you, like it was inside the bathroom in the hotel, it was raining. Like there was so much condensation in there, the bathroom was raining. Anyway, I come out of there, I'm like, I can't do this, like I'm not gonna make weight, I don't care, like I'm dying. And I was like dry heaving and everything, and like my brother's like looking at a map to see where the hospital is quietly, just in case. And it's just like I just did too much at once, and I was boiling myself. But I threw up finally a little bit, and I'm like, just fuck it, let's just see where I'm at. And I made right on the dot. Somehow I made weight. But the recomp for that was, again, what screws me, because then I always lose my hands. What would you do?
I only experienced shit like that once, and I'm like, fuck it, I'm going up. And I was in an environment too where Louis was telling me based upon my height I should be a 308 anyhow. So my problem was getting the weight up, because I could get it. I'd want to hold it, say 283 was like my panic level. If it started to fall under 283, then there was a problem. If I could train between 283 290, and then the last week, last 10 days going in, I was able to bloat up, to at least 300, 302. So I would be gaining into it.
The opposite.
So I'm trying to fill it out because it made the gear work better too. So that mine was on the other spectrum. Sometimes I get on the scale, and this would be all year long. It'd say like 278, be like, fuck, and never in my mind did I think 75. It's like, how the hell do I get this back up? But there were once I went from, it was like 92 to 75, and it didn't go well.
Damn.
It was a mess.
When you're that big though, too, it's easier to cut.
It should be. It should be.
A bloated pig, it should just come off quickly.
Mentally, I don't think, because it wasn't something I did a lot. I don't think mentally I was able to wrap my head around it. So that was a part of all that. And then on the other end, I got somebody tell me I need to be 308, and it's the time I'm like, I don't know if I want to weigh that much.
Did you get over that?
Only for meets though.
Weird.
So the heaviest was like 312 was the heaviest. And that was after weighing in, the day of the meet. But usually it was like 90, probably was 95 to 302.
Yeah.
Right where I needed to be. Sometimes if it was too much, the gear didn't fit right. So I had the gear issues that the gear was a little different then too. But if I'm not big enough. All right, guys, this is how I use my element packs. I got a few different ways that I use it. So currently just got done training. So post training, I will mix one of the chocolate. This is the chocolate caramel and my oatmeal. I'm more of a half packet guy. So I put about a half a packet in there and then stir it around. Then it adds that salty chocolate taste to it. If for some reason I'm using chocolate protein in my oatmeal, then I won't put that in there. I'll put a half pack in my coffee, which I'm not going to do now, but the chocolate mocha is really good in the coffee. And then for training, when I trained earlier today, it's simply, my favorite is the grapefruit salt. Pretty much just a half pack in there, and then kind of reseal the packs and then put them in. And then, so for training, I'll have a half a pack and then half a pack in the oatmeal. So it's about a pack a day. If I'm sweating really bad during training, then I might use a full pack in there. But the go-to for me is the oatmeal because it's an everyday thing.
I narrowed my search down to 3 different companies, all made nice equipment, all had nice accessories, but by far and away, elitefts had the best customer service and honestly the best prices too. So there were a few things that I wanted for this facility that weren't already being done by elitefts. And when I asked Matt, I said, would you be able to do this? He said, not a problem. I will make any piece you want, any dimension you want, any color we want, even if it's not already in your catalog. So once he said that, was able to follow through on that and give us a very high quality product on time at a price that was better than any of their competitors. It was a no-brainer for me.
All right, guys, if you're anything like me, there's going to be certain times of the year where you're going to suffer from brain fog because either you're working too much or not working enough, or your training just sucks and it's not going the way that you want it to go. Merrick Health can help with this. Merrick Health is a premium telehealth platform that focuses on hormone optimization and preventative medicine. merrickhealth.com/table talk. You look for the guided optimization, you set that up, you'll get 10% off your first order, even if it is just the labs or the guided optimization, by using the code Table Talk. Then the gear would be too big. If I was too big, then there's no way in hell I'm going to be able to touch, or hit depth.
Mental.
So it was a mental type thing there. Weird. But I've done that shit, and it's just no. So I didn't want to ever do it again, was part of it. But then I had the reinforcement of it's time to go up, because when I was competing at 75, that's when I have to cut. And what happens is, and I'm sure you experienced that at 220, every year you're adding a little bit more muscle. That's so the point, so that easy 10 pounds isn't an easy 10 pounds when underlying all the fat, there's 5 more pounds of lean body mass. That kind of gets in there. And a lot of guys will get stuck in a weight class, then they can't progress any further because now they're cutting 20 pounds. Then the next year is 25.
Well, I think that's what happened kind of with Dan, trying to hold on to the 220s for too long. Because I remember seeing him at Rum 7, and I saw him at weigh-ins, and I was, for whatever reason, sometimes this was like a really easy cut for me. But for him, I think he cut from like 250 something down to 220. And when I saw him before weighing in, remember E.T. when they found him like in the ditch and his skin was all gray and like, he looked like that. Like he was going to die. He's walking, but he did not look good. And I think he told me he got up to like over 250 again before the meet, which is wild. I couldn't do anything like that. Nothing. So no, yeah, weight cutting's rough. Did you get a IV after every time?
Yeah, even when I would cut, I used basic Lasix.
Yeah.
So it was injectable, so it's faster.
Oh yeah.
Right? So it's, the orals are the problem.
They stay in you too long.
So they stay in you. So as you're trying to recomp, it's still coming off.
Yeah.
Where if it's injectable, it's shorter life. So it's in and out, and then IV up. And so there's no problem with that.
Yeah.
Hell, I'd IV up even if I didn't have to cut.
Yeah.
Just to be more full.
Yeah. You guys were deeper in than me. Because I was like traveling too from Canada to the States. I didn't know how to get an IV. Yeah. I only had an IV once, and that was Boss of Bosses too, that actually Dan set up for everybody, which was made a huge difference.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. People kept telling me it doesn't make that much of a difference, but then when I did it, way different.
Yeah, you feel full.
Yeah, and I feel full, and my gut is not full yet.
Yeah,
I can still feel my guts.
That would be the problem when I push the weight back up. Is my gut would be full.
Yeah,
but then everything else didn't feel full.
Yeah, it's not. If just because it's in you doesn't mean it's in you. Yeah. So the weight cutting is pretty brutal. Did you ever have to do, or not have to? Remember for some time there was like a 2-day weigh-in. Did you ever see
I didn't. That was after me.
Oh, was it?
That was a tricky one because it sounded like a great idea at first.
Yeah.
Right?
It does.
But what actually happened was, you cut the weight, then you make the weight and you start recomping it back up. And a lot of times when you recomp back up, it's a little bit higher than what your normal is.
Oh.
But then another 24 hours after that, it starts
for the
coming back. It's not like you super compensate.
Yeah.
Then it starts coming back down.
There's no benefit really.
No.
And it messed with your gear?
This was after I was done competing. This is, the sponsors that we had or other lifters that I would know. I'm sure it did, but it was, some of them would drop way down.
Yeah.
So say they'd make you go from 250 to 220 or whatever it's going to be.
Jeez.
And then recomp back to 250. Then that next day after that, now they're 240.
That's wild.
So it just spun back down. So they all kind of moved back, to making it one day. Because one thing you said earlier is the faster you can do all this shit.
Yeah, the shorter amount of time.
The better it is. Yeah. So for this, and if the Lasix is like someone wakes you up at 4 a.m, hits that, you wake up, pee your brains out, and then sauna, shower shit, and then boom, you're talking 4 hours maybe.
Yeah.
Nice. Way smaller period of time.
It's the worst.
Yeah. Now I think they got things figured out a little bit better.
Yeah.
As far as water manipulation and sodium, so you don't have to deal with all that shit.
Just a bunch of idiots.
Yeah. Well, you're figuring it all out, When you get to where are we at now? Rum 6?
Yeah, I won Rum 6. I think we move on to Rum 7. Rum 7 gets really big again.
So what was it like winning Rum 6? Because part of you still wanted to win, right? But the other part was locked into the 2000.
Yeah, the winning these things on the way up really didn't. I'll get to the end part, but it was not anything really to me. It's nice to win because how'd you do? Oh, I won. But really, I was never satisfied, like ever really. You kind of sometimes expect to win too. It's just like, well, I should win, but you never know. It's nice. Obviously, it's nice to win, but I didn't really care that much. Yeah, I wanted to lift more weights.
Now, would you say at that point your training was pretty dialed in?
Yeah, I don't know if it was ever dialed in because I experimented a lot. Like, remember I said I should have been doing grip work. I think I found something really good with building my 80 in the off season, like obsessing over that and staying between 70 80%. And then the way I would peak too, I think I found something there, which is what I would do for myself now if I was to come back or something. This is how I would do it. And this is what I recommend for a lot of people. But again, it comes down to, why does all this stuff work? Like, what do you think is going to work for you? Like, if you can obsessively think that this is going to work, then it's probably going to work.
Well, getting back on that topic, I think if somebody's doing a program and they doubt it, they're already destined to fail.
If there's doubt,
yeah. So it's whatever they're doing, they got to really believe this is going to work.
You have to believe it.
Yeah.
If you don't believe it, then you're just wasting your time.
Yeah. And that's where maybe there's more issues now because we only had so many programs to look at.
Yeah.
I mean, I was kind of locked into, maybe before Westside, it was linear periodization for about a decade.
Mm-hmm.
And then Westside, I'm kind of locked in. So if I'd see other programs, it'd be like, oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
It's interesting, but I'm not doing it, because it's not with the club I'm at.
Were you allowed to do anything?
No. No.
They would just yell at you, get the fuck out of here kind of thing?
Yeah, pretty much.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, I mean, there were people that were exited.
Yeah,
because they weren't going to do that.
Yeah,
because there's all those intangibles.
Were they successful after being ousted though? Anyone get ousted?
Somewhere.
Yeah.
Somewhere. I mean, that was one of Louis' big things is everybody that leaves doesn't get better, but over a period of time, a few of them did.
Yeah.
And that was probably more because while I was there, we didn't train in gear.
Yeah. I guess Wenning left and did well.
Yes.
Yeah.
And there was a point where, gear changed.
Mm-hmm.
It got better. So the carryovers were better. And we would maybe squat in briefs and only use a belt for like top sets. I mean,
did that bug you guys ever? Like
it started to,
yeah,
right?
It's really funny. Like I'm looking at like any gear is like, what are you guys doing? And then you guys are wearing gear, but then mad at someone else is wearing crazier gear.
Yeah.
Like, that's stupid.
Well, it wasn't so much that. It's, I remember walking into the gym and my gym bag was just literally my belt with 2 elbow sleeves and my knee wraps tied around it.
Yeah, yeah.
That was it.
That's
the only time the gear really came out would be, at the meet. That's when you'd put the squat suit on, adventure. And so over a period of time, we start to see people that we know we are stronger than.
Yeah.
But
that would bug you.
Lifting way more.
Yeah.
And so that's where some of the clashes started to happen in the gym because we're like, maybe we ought to be using this shit, like sports specificity, all this other stuff. And that's when, some of the people would leave and then they'd start using the gear more than the numbers would go up.
But you never thought the opposite, like, hey, let's get rid of this stuff. And
no.
Never,
right? And it's, because it's during the time that I was in there, Raw wasn't a thing.
No.
So my first meet was single ply. I mean, it's just.
Never nothing.
No.
There's always some sort of
I didn't even know it was an option.
Oh, well, it wasn't.
Yeah,
really,
so it really wasn't. So that really wasn't the thing, but it did become a thing of, what the hell, I'm getting 20 pounds, 40 pounds out of my bench, or this person over here is getting 200.
Yeah.
Maybe we need to figure out how to get 200 out of this. Yeah. And then some of us would go and learn, from different clubs, and then would hear all kinds of shit.
Yeah.
For weeks after that.
Oh, for going to learn.
Yeah. From going to,
You're not allowed to do that.
Not so much.
Was it like Crawford?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had one meet where, it was getting towards the end of my career and I'm getting fucking frustrated because my raw bench is like 545 and my gear bench was 600. It wasn't even that. It was like 585 at the time. I'm like, this is some bullshit.
Yeah.
And one of the meets I was in, the squat, I bombed out in the squat for whatever reason. And I'm like, fuck it. Crawford's here. Like, just do your magic. Like, do one of your seminars with me here.
Quick.
Like, and so he's changing my form and all this shit in the warm up room. And I go out on the platform and Bill's helped me set up and Louis in the front row just staring me down, just bitching like a motherfucker.
That's awesome.
And I couldn't touch, but I'd never benched something so fast in my entire life.
Oh, yeah.
So now Louis yelling at me and other people are yelling at me, get your fucking feet out, quit this arching bullshit, all this other stuff. So on my second attempt, I did that because I didn't want to hear the bullshit anymore.
All right.
Got stapled.
Yeah.
Right. So then on the third, pulled it back in, and did it, and it was fine, but that was an issue at that time, because everything was kind of changing during that. So, but no, I don't believe there was anybody there. It was after I left where I think Winning went in Raw.
Yeah.
And that might have been one of the Raw unities.
Yeah, Winning.
But he was already out of the club by then.
Yeah, Matt, I remember seeing him I competed with him at RUM 7 and 8. Not in the same weight class. I think he was using the mono or something, but not using wraps or something like that in RUM 7 and 8. Yeah, I think both maybe. I can't remember. He was there, I remember. What was my question going to be about Westside? Man, I can't remember now. No, I'll have to carry on.
But training wise, it was kind of locked in all that. So what I was getting at was, and I love this training shit, right? Yeah. So as I'm seeing what everybody else is doing, so there's, you know, in my brain, there's that what if type thing. Like, what if I did that? But I was progressing, you know, it was all good. And I'm toward the back end where today, you know, and even at that time, you had like West Side 531, some linear shit. There were maybe 5 different things.
Yeah, not much.
And no online coaching and stuff like that. Where today, you know, somebody who's coming up and is progressing, they have so many options that I think it creates a lot of doubt. Like they don't know if they're on the best program because maybe they should be on this program or this program. Yeah. Where, you know, back then, you're kind of locked into what you're doing. Yeah. And there's not so much jumping, program hopping.
Yeah, that's right. There was less program hopping. I don't know if even having a coach early on is the best thing. Like I wouldn't want to coach, even going, let's say I started now, I don't think I'd want to be with someone telling me what to do. Like you're robbing me of the joy of discovering all these different methods, like Smolov, and even though it's nonsense, it didn't work. Or like the, you know, squatting like multiple times per week to a max, or
no, I think that's all important.
Yeah, it's all important to figure out what works for you. Or like nobody talks to people anymore, or do they? I don't really see that too much. Like everyone follows like a program, and it's like very like put out there like 3 sets of this, or bringing your feelings involved somehow. Like I spent most of my time ignoring my feelings. I don't know about you, like with RPE and stuff like that. I don't know how to manage that or how anyone would manage it. The RPE to me is just like, you know, all full, like as heavy as I can for the most part within the parameter I'm setting.
It brings in perception. Like what is your 8.5?
Yeah.
You know, and is that 85%?
Yeah, no.
You know,
because 8.5 with like a 70% weight, how do you, that's not 85%. Like I don't know. Like I just don't like it. I'd rather like, if I say to you, lift 75% for 5 sets of 5, you can always do that no matter how shitty you feel. It might be harder to do, like maybe you're up drinking or something and this feels like shit, but you're always going to be able to do it. And then if I said, do 5 sets of 5 at like 7 RPE because you're out drinking the night before or something stupid, you're going to go even less weight. But you know, you could have lifted 75%, or just say lift as heavy as you can, 5 sets of 5. I feel like that's better, but again, the numbers keep going up, so I'm just an idiot.
Yeah. As you progress through your ability, what I kind of auto-regulate, you know, your ability to kind of make the micro decisions, you know, through a training session becomes a little more fine-tuned as well. You know, so if it's the 5 sets of 5, you know, on a day that feels really, really good, you know, you may bump it up. You know, on a day that doesn't feel so good, you may just push through it, or you may lower it a little bit. But at a certain point in time, when you get there, you begin to start to have an understanding that if it does feel really good and I do these 2 extra sets, then it will probably fuck up my next week, because I won't be recovered in time.
Well, that's another discussion. Like with people doing the RPE stuff, I feel like they're just keeping themselves a little bit peaked all the time. They never want to lift less or feel like they can only lift less, because how much do you get out of, like, you know, you push and push and push for multiple weeks at a time, and then something happens or you back off a little bit, and that's when you get the actual super compensation. Like, you have to be okay with being weaker for a little bit, like only lifting 70 to 80% and pushing those numbers higher. You don't always want to just keep yourself peaked, because you're just not really, you know, you're not breaking anything. You're not breaking into new territory, because you didn't really ask your body to improve in any way, because you don't really have to, because you're always lifting around the same weight for around the same reps. I don't know. I don't like that style. But yeah, I feel like people keep themselves peaked with this kind of training. Like, I know like John Hack can do it, but he's something different.
Whereas But with each of those individuals, they all had the time that you're talking about, where maybe it starts with 5-3-1, then it goes, you'll try some linear stuff, or I remember doing some Bulgarian shit, which was kind of like squatting 4 days a week, heavy, you know, and figuring it out.
Yeah.
You know, like what can you recover from, you know, and
well, your recovery ability changes too. So you have to do more to be able to do more. So you can't just lift around the same amount of weight and make yourself feel good all the time, because you're never really asking yourself to make that increase in strength. You're not demanding your body to do it, and your recovery ability will get better too. So if you're only always just doing like up to like a top, you know, double at like 9 or whatever it is, and then a back off of 3 at the same kind of like RPE, it's like, that's pretty easy. And like, I feel like it is working for some people, but I feel like it's not going well for more people than it's working for.
When we get to RUM 8, I'm trying to look here. Why is there only one lift per?
RUM 8. Well,
no, this is Boss of Bosses that I'm looking at.
Yeah, Boss of Bosses. Well, something funny happened with RUM 8 too. Like, in all my meets, something I used to do was like push that last session really, really hard, and like do too much of like almost like close to a max. Like if I lift this in the gym, then I'm going to rest and I should be able to lift more in the meet. But what was happening was I was doing too much in the gym and not leaving it for the meet. I was doing my meet at the gym. And I think I see that a lot too, people doing their meet in the gym. And it's like, well, I lifted in the gym, I should be able to, I don't know why I didn't do that to me. It's like, because you already did it. I remember leaving off squat weights. So like one year was like I left off lifting like 705 in the gym and I only squatted 685 in the meet. And the next time I squatted like 700 for 3 in the gym and I only squatted like 705 in the meet or something. And I started bringing the numbers down and leaving a lot more in the tank. So like the next year I lifted less, like 685 for 5, and I squatted like 744 in the meet. I was doing a lot less in the end and leaving way more at the meet, and it was working a lot better. So that happened at RUM 8.
Well, RUM 8, you had over 2,000 too.
Yeah, I cracked, what did I do, 2017, I think. Yeah. So that was the first time I did crack the 2,000 mark, which at the time I think I was only third lifter to do it. And I thought that I wanted to break the all-time world record in sleeves. But then shortly after that came Boss of Bosses, and Dan was putting on this meet, and everyone was going into wraps. It was like all the big names lifters were supposed to be doing this meet in wraps. So I'm like, okay, I want to get on the same platform as these guys and I want to beat them all. So I'll try to figure out this wrap thing. But I never put wraps on before, and it felt very different when I did. Actually, I never had wraps, and I think it was Dan who sent me wraps to try to get me to get to this meet in wraps. So the first time I put wraps on, I squatted less. Like I squatted less than I normally would. Like I think I squatted like at that time, I squatted like 744, and I think my first time in wraps I squatted 555 for 8 reps or something. And I'm just like, should I throw these in the garbage or what? But each week I just would just add like 20 pounds kind of thing to the bar, and I was starting doing better and better and better. And I'm like, maybe I'll keep these, and end up working out.
How long did it take you to figure out how to use them to your advantage? Because there's a difference between just putting them on really, really tight and actually using them. Yeah.
If you squat the same way you do out of wraps, in wraps, you're going to get nothing out of it. There's like, it's hard to even like, to explain to people how to use them, but it's like, you have to push into them, but you're not actually pushing into them either. It's like so slight the way you do it. And I don't think you can do it in gear too well because you're sitting back in gear. Yeah, it's like almost the opposite. So you probably got very little out of your wraps in gear. But then I didn't get that much out of my wraps, but I probably got 60 pounds out of them or something, or 70 maybe. But it took, every week I got a little bit better. But yeah, you have to push into them or nothing's going to happen.
Well, with with Rum 8 and hitting the 2000 and taking 6 years with that goal there, because it was after Rum 2 when Croc told you the 2000 thing.
Yeah.
What did it feel like to finally do that?
It was a bit of a relief, but not that much of a relief.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know if I'm different or what, but while I loved lifting, it's really good to crack these numbers. Like, it was a bit of a relief, but not overwhelming or anything.
So
it was always about lifting more. Like, okay, I want to lift more now. Like, the chase is way better than the goal kind of thing.
So it wasn't anticlimactic where you hit this, now you're done? No.
It was never like that at all. I just wanted to lift more. Like, it still wasn't an all-time world record, and that was what the main goal was. So I didn't really care that much. Did it change your perception of training in the sport and what you're doing? Because I cracked 2000, I mean? No. It was, I needed to hit the all-time world record for this to mean what it's supposed to mean to me, I guess. Okay. Or to fulfill what I've been thinking about for 8 years straight now, obsessively. So that's where Boss of Bosses comes in. That's where Boss of Bosses comes in, with the wraps and everything. It was like, again, like I said, I got to use the IV this time. I got to compete against the guy who held the record for a long time and hadn't been beaten for years. I got to do it in his backyard. They made everyone feel awesome. Like, it was such a big meet kind of thing. They pulled a lot of people together for whatever reason, because Omar and stuff was there too. He filmed it and he brought his friends, and I had a lot of friends there somehow, and it ended up being a perfect day that I actually knew was going to happen that day. I remember thinking, I just don't want something stupid to happen, like my shoe be untied or something, because otherwise I'm going to do this. And then I see a picture after, and my shoe's untied when I'm squatting. And I almost walked backwards all the way off the platform on my final squat. I remember thinking, like, I'm going to run right into Ed, because Ed was standing back there. But I didn't somehow, and ended up being a perfect day. That was your last meet? So that's the last meet where I totaled. I went to Australia as a guest lifter. Yeah. After that, but I ended up getting hurt. There was some realization there after that too. But I know what you're going to ask me. Like, you hit all-time world record. That's what you wanted to do this whole time. How did it feel? But not so much that, but was it closure? It was a relief, but that's it. Just a relief. I think there's probably closure there because it was the goal the whole time, and I knew I could do it. But it was like, people have asked me before, and I say, it's like, remember in Simpsons when Homer bowls that perfect game and then, like, the one balloon comes down? It's kind of like that. Like, it's not anything big and that special. Like, at that time, did you think there was going to be anything more? I mean, you've been in the sport for a decade at that point. Not that I ever wanted something from someone else. I never expected anyone else to care. Like, in this sport, no one really cares what you lift. It's like your family and friends are always going to think you're pretty strong anyway. They don't care if you bomb or do terribly. People are going to say something for like 5 minutes, and that's it. People are just doing their own thing anyway. So I don't expect anything big to happen, but it definitely was a huge relief. But I didn't realize until after that it was. I lost a lot after that. Like, I lost a lot of interest, and I didn't realize it at the time, because I kept kind of training, and I was going to do other meets, and I went to Australia and I did that meet there. That didn't go well because the travel was so hard. I don't know if you've ever been on an airplane for 20 hours straight, but I couldn't. It was really hard to come back from. And I did okay, but I ended up hurting my pec. But I realized at that point, like, the interest was gone. I was satisfied, and I didn't really care to keep doing it. So how has your training been since then? Not good. I shouldn't say that. Like, I love training, and I'll keep doing it. Like, it's something I just feel super passionate about. Obviously, like, don't you just like thank God every day you get to train? Like, do you not just feel so good that you found something that you have so much not every I mean, there's a lot of days you don't want to train at all. No, I don't. I don't have that though. Still, like, I just love lifting. The competing wasn't really the thing for me. I did it because you have to, and you can't be a gym lifter, but the lifting part was the best. So now I do a lot of arm wrestling stuff because it's like new. I don't know if I'll compete in that because, as you know, it takes forever to get good at something. But I like it because it's different, and I can set PRs at different things. You know, it's like I didn't do a lot of arm work in powerlifting, and now I do a lot of it. So it's like I see new gains in that way. And arm wrestling is just another way to think of these things.
So when you were competing, would you say that, you know, being that power lifter became your identity, or you always had a separate identity from that?
I think it probably did become my identity in some way, though, because I think I thought about it constantly. I thought about the end goal constantly. You know, I did videos with Omar, which ended up being a thing that people would recognize me from them. They'd come into the gym and talk to me because of these videos. So I think it did become my identity a little bit. So I do remember it being hard to stop.
Yeah, I was going to ask, how'd you deal with no longer competing? Because there's always that voice.
The voice was there for a little while, but again, I was satisfied. So it's hard to get worked up for something you've kind of already done. At least for me, like I don't know how people keep doing it. Like it's pretty crazy to keep doing it. It's crazy to do it in a higher weight class too. Like I don't know. It's one thing to get used to the numbers that in your weight class, but then to have like what makes you think that you should be able to lift the weights higher too in the higher weight class. That's a mental case to me. Like someone like Ed or something, or like John Hack, like that's pretty crazy to me. But the voice slowly went away because I opened a gym and I got too busy. And as you probably know, I bet you when you started this
I wasn't able to do anything with the business while I was still competing.
Yeah, they're two conflicting things.
Very much so. When did you open the gym?
In 2018. 2018, we opened up. So it's a Fortis Fitness. It's the West location. Sean Kelly is like the mastermind behind Fortis. He kind of developed like how it all works. He developed a ton of equipment too. I don't know if you've seen any of it, but we have a lot of our own Fortis equipment, which is a lot different from a lot of people. It should be pushed harder because it's pretty awesome. Like we have a push-up harness, so you can do weighted push-ups. So you can add like 5, 6, 7 plates if you want to do push-ups with as much weight as you want. It's pretty awesome. Our glute ham raise is really cool because you can change the angle. If you're new to it, you can crank it up so it's easier for beginners. And you can go completely like inverted, so like your hamstrings become like steel cables. So he's developed a lot of equipment that he's brought into the gym and we've played around with and like gave him ways to like adjust it and make it different. He'd take it back. Like we have a chest support row that's been back and forth. Like I think it went like 7 times to be adjusted until it's like completely like pimped out and crazy. Yeah. So we have that. And
was it what you expected it was going to be?
No, I mean, yes. I mean, opening a gym, like you end up being basically a janitor. A lot of it, yeah. I don't think you should open up a gym because you like to lift weights. You should open up a gym because you want a successful business or you want to help people lifting weights. So, in that way, it's probably about what I expected because I looked into it. And like, I know it's not about lifting weights all day long. I definitely didn't get to do that. I'd say my lifting has probably never been worse. Like, yeah, even though I get to do it, like it's not really. I don't get to do it. I don't do it on my own schedule. You can't. You had a different mindset when you were lifting for powerlifting, or I was. I'd sit in a chair. I would keep to myself. I'm not being a dick to anybody, but like I'm busy trying to do something in my head, and then I can't do that now in the gym. I'm not going to pull up a chair and not talk to anybody.
Yeah.
If someone needs help with something or, you see something on the ground, you got to pick it up or just like, it's completely 2 different worlds in your mind. Yeah. Can't do it. Or you can't compete anyway.
Yeah.
Or at least I can't.
Do you work with powerlifters in the gym?
So I don't do any coaching anymore. We, it's like a strength and conditioning facility open to the general public. It's semi-private, but we have like bankers lifting beside like high-level powerlifters. We have weightlifters. There's a couple strongmen, and then it's just like mostly people that hate like commercial gyms, have a passion for training, have a passion for this kind of stuff and just want to improve. So everyone just wants to improve and everyone gets along. It's like the friendliest gym I've ever been in. It's weird.
So with the powerlifters, because I have no idea how much you are online. I know you don't post anywhere, which is actually kind of cool, by the way. So I don't know if you're seeing all of that, because if I was in your position, I wouldn't even have any of those apps to open up and look at. But you're seeing the lifters in the gym. What are some of the things that you're seeing that they could improve upon?
Well, when you were so there's a lot of weird things I see now that I don't understand. One is too much of the RP and never letting like your strength fall below your top level to make something move, to make the needle move. I don't see anybody like pushing. I shouldn't say anybody, but I don't see a lot of people pushing very hard anymore. Like, I don't know how many times I've laid down after squatting, like beside the rack, because I pushed really, really hard. I'm not saying you have to copy me, but I don't see that so much anymore. When you were at Westside, could you ever fathom doing, or Louis telling you, or what would Louis say if you saw someone doing a mid-rep pause deadlift? Like stopping your bar midway and then going again.
And no, he was not a fan of that.
Yeah.
No.
And I don't know in my mind how anyone can ever do this. Like it blows my mind. You're building in a sticking point. Yeah. You are making yourself stop. It's very weird. It should be point A to point B over and over, just like you would be throwing a perfect punch or something.
Yeah. Westside was a little different because of how Kanchian operated, so there's, that max effort day, then a speed day. So basically a heavy day and a light day, if you kind of want to lay it out that way. So the heavy days were always fucking heavy, hard. And then the dynamic days, at least while I was there, was maximum intent, with sub-maximal weight for a lot of sets. Sometimes it'd be 8, sometimes we've run them as high as 20 sets, back to back. So hard, without any doubt, hard. My time before that, when it was more linear, my bench was 500. I'm like kind of what you're talking about. I'm starting probably at 365. Yeah,
but you're doing like
fives, 5 sets of 5 or whatever, 365, and the next week and the next week. And, it would progress up over a period of time. Then meet happens, and then off season shit, hypertrophy, fuck around, maintain. My goal was to not, while you were trying to build the 80%, I didn't want to fall under 90%.
No,
like I would give myself a 10% drop, because I'd pull the gear out, and then I would fight to be able to stay.
So you would keep hitting 90% numbers?
Well, if it was max effort or whatever set rep scheme I had, so if the best 405 was 8 reps or whatever it was, and then I go off, and then 90% of whatever that was,
you try to stay around there.
Yeah, that's where I would let it fall. If it fell lower than then maybe I had to think about going on gear again, something along those lines. Whereas if it was today and I'm trying to like project if I was alive in this world today at that time, I don't know, because who wants to post 365 for 5 sets of 5 when the best is 520? So sometimes I don't know with a lot of the people that we would see online if that's what they're actually doing or not.
Oh, I see.
You get me?
But I see it in my gym though.
Oh, so you see it?
I see a lot of pause. A lot of mid-rep pause. People are doing it. So it doesn't make sense to me. I think what I read is like Boris Shako put it in his some lifters program for someone who has a hard time keeping their bar close to their shins in a sumo deadlift, and you got them to reinforce that spot, and then people just took it and ran with it. I would even think like you're probably better off doing like a super slow eccentric or something to grease that pattern, because you were just building a sticking point to me. I once saw a lifter, and this is when I kind of had the thought about this. I saw a lifter, and he's like a well-known lifter. This is probably like 5-6 years ago or something, leading up to IPF Worlds. And his last deadlift before the meet was 2 pauses. So he paused like mid shin, and then he paused like above the knee, and then he finished the lift. That was the last thing he did before he went to the meet. And then I watched him lift on the platform at the meet. His bar literally stops above the knee, dips a little bit, and then comes back up. Like in my head, he probably made himself do that. Like, what are you going to do under stress when it comes time? Like, your body's just going to go into autopilot and just do whatever you told it to do.
So what I've always wondered with that was, I can see how it could be beneficial if you actually were able to pause in the exact position that it would be if you pulled the full rep. And when I see people do the pause reps where they pause, and if you compare that to their full rep, they're not in the same position. So then that becomes this weird thing that a lot of people will run into, say, if they pull against bands, right? They'll change the way that they're pulling, timing wise, just to be able to be rip through the band, right? So it changes things subtly, but makes a big difference on the back end. Where if you had the foresight with the bands to be able to make sure you didn't do that, which means you're going to pull it a little bit lower speed, then it would, this is so nuanced that I can see application for people that understand the nuance, which is not the people that are doing these things.
Yeah, no, exactly. And you have to slow down to stop too. So you're telling yourself to slow down. Like, you should be from point A to point B over and over and over. Like, remember I heard the word seamlessly. Donnie Thompson used the word seamlessly, and I think that's like a perfect word for it. Your reps should be seamless instead of you're building in a seam. So I don't understand that. So there are mistakes I see people make. I think lifting too heavy in a way, like going over 90% frequently just to keep that top end strength there. One of the best training cycles I ever did was I took 2 weights. This was for a squat. It was squatting, beltless training cycle. I literally took 2 weights. I took 505 and 555. And I did, I started like week 1 with like 505 for 8, 555 for 8, 505 for 8. And then I started adding. I just went like 505, 555, 10s. And then I started more backup sets. And I got up to like after about 6 weeks, it got to like 505 for 12, 555, 2 sets of 12, back off 505 for 12. And I'd be like laying on the floor after, like, can't move for a half hour. And then like 1 week after that, it felt really good. And I worked up to like 600 for 10 beltless squat. So I used 2 sub-max weights. I didn't have to put like all these little change plates on and keep moving it, progressing it up and down. I just picked 2 weights and I just worked the piss out of it. And then I lifted a heavier weight for many reps. So I think people they don't go into the sub-max enough, I think. And I think you can get a lot of work at a sub-max weights.
Well, that leads into a different discussion too, when the different ways that you can approach sticking points, where some people approach sticking points by doing accessories and all this other stuff. But sometimes the best way to approach a sticking point is to just use less weight and do more sets
and work through it
to be able to build through it
seamlessly.
And that's another thing that's kind of gotten lost, in translation over the years as well.
You mean, figure out a sticking point?
Well, how to address them.
I see.
Right? Because I've always said sticking points either mental, physical, or technical. Right? Most of them are mental and technical. I mean, if you really look at it, most of it, their technique just sucks. If they fix that, it's going to fix everything. But what people want the answer to is, what exercise can I do to increase my lockout? Sometimes the answer is back down sets with less weight to be able to grind through and build that skill through to that. And where the go-to, again, falls onto, I miss my bench here. What exercise do I need to do to build that?
For me, it's just more heavy benches seamlessly. Like the heaviest weight you can do through that range of motion perfectly from point A to point B before it form breaks. And to me, that you're just greasing that motor pattern over and over and over, rather than trying to find some special exercise to make that spot stronger. I don't really understand. Same with like, I never really understood doing, so let's say you fail your deadlift like near lockout. I never understood doing rack pulls then. Like you fail at lockout, so you set the bar up in an advantaged area so that you can lift the lockout heavier. To me, that's like it's like you're a sprinter and you near the end of the race you are slowing down and people are running past you. Would you then set your blocks up 20 meters away from the finish line? No, to me it's like you have like in that case it'd be like a speed endurance. Just like this, I feel like it's like a strength endurance issue. So I think it's the opposite. I think you should be pulling from like a deficit, making it further longer, so you have to like grind reps through that point.
Well, that becomes another one that's in the nuanced as well. Years ago, Steve Goggins, because he was a fan of lockouts, made a video on how he actually does, the pin lockouts. Yeah. And he does them in such a way that his body is exactly in the same position. Yeah. And where it's very easy to do a pin lockout, but to leverage yourself, to leg press it up or whatever you're going to be able to do. But with the way that he would lay the training out, that was just a block. Yeah. Where it's because it was easier to recover from. Okay. And then people take that and be like, where further out, it was deficit pulls. Yeah. When the actual training weight was lighter, because then he was able to recover from the heavier deficit pulls. Okay. Because as you were saying, a lot of times that lockout isn't because you're weak there. Yeah. It's because you didn't have the strength endurance to actually pull through it. You're negating the whole. Yeah.
The whole like 80% you did before that point and just doing the part that's easy. So that never made sense to me.
What are some of the other things that you're saying?
I think that's mostly it. I don't know. People record a lot now. I don't know if you need to do it as much as people do it. I don't know how many people would be lifting if they couldn't record. But again, more people are doing it, so that's a good thing. Did you guys ever record things? I know there's like the West Side. Well, but would you guys record like, let's record everything?
No, well, we didn't have phones to be able to do it, but no. I mean, the only time it was recorded is when Louis would make the videos. Yeah. And that was always, that was interesting. Yeah. It's, I was for the last, I don't know how many he did after I left, but for the ones that I was there, I was the one that had to go review the film, and we'd have to record 6 or 7 dynamic days to be able to get one where somebody wasn't fucking off or using profanity or, all this stuff that would just be too much for the videographer who we were sending it to edit. To the point we'd have signs all over the place, don't swear. And it was just an epic failure. Yeah, yeah. One of the funniest things was there was one day we didn't turn it off, and it was turned and it was just facing out the door, and the conversations that were going on as I'm listening to this
nonsense
at home was just funnier than shit. That's funny. Because when you're engaged in those conversations in the gym, you don't realize how funny this shit really is until you review it later. What about with PED use with the guys?
No, that's not a thing in our gym at all, I would say. Yeah. Like I would talk to anyone about it if they wanted my advice on it, but no, it's I think more people lift natty now to stay natty. I'm not sure though. Really, I'm kind of out of it.
I've said this a few times and caught hell after the first time I said it. And it was, I think the majority of the sport has always been natty. But sometimes your perception gets warped when you're a better lifter because all you're seeing are the lifters that are around you that you're competing with. Yeah. But when I go to open powerlifting and click any weight class and then start scrolling down the numbers, there's a certain number to where, okay, yeah, probably. And then once you get after that top 50 or whatever it is, the numbers aren't that big. No. So if there's 200,000 people and people are like, yeah, everybody's taking drugs, then I'm looking at these lists and going really deep and saying, well, then their drugs suck.
Yeah. Well, you don't know anyone personally that has taken anything and has not been very good at lifting? Like I've definitely seen that, and I've definitely seen lifters I mean, including myself when I was a young natty and, benching 440, weighing under 200 pounds, everyone just thought I was on gear, but I wasn't.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's hard to really tell who is on gear. I think most people would be surprised who's on gear. And I think most people would also be surprised at who isn't.
Most definitely.
Yeah.
Like that, after I retired and the WPO started becoming a thing, there were a lot of lifters that I was sponsoring at the time that were telling me that they were natty.
Yeah.
And the whole time I'm thinking, there's no fucking way.
Yeah.
There's no way.
Yep.
And a handful of them. And then over the next 3 years, every single one of them, would tell me, hey, I think I'm going to run a cycle. And it kind of pissed me off at first because I'm like, you're like, why you bull? It was like,
you think that they're lying?
Yeah. Then that's 300 pounds would be on their total in the next week.
And then you would see that.
And it'd be like, so then it was like, wait a minute. People can get really fucking strong, clean, really strong, like way stronger than what I thought because I saw, because at that point it's like, okay, maybe they were telling me the truth this whole time because there's nothing they really changed outside this one variable. And there's 300 more pounds on it total in 6 months.
But you only get that jump once though.
Yeah.
Like I've told people, it's like you get about 10%, like a good lifter, I think, or someone with really good genetics, depending on when they go on. I think if they go on really young, then you can get more, but usually about 10%, and you get that 10% once. So if you're going on to, compete at a meet, that's like, if you're going on to compete at the big show, you're probably not ever going to win it.
The biggest problem I see around this topic is over the years it's become more acceptable to discuss, where years ago it was nobody was lying, they just weren't saying anything. They pivot the conversation a different way, just indifferent, where it's become more part of the conversation, so more younger lifters are thinking that it's necessary and part of the whole process. And if they go on too young and they don't learn that changing your technique can make your lifts better. Dialing in your training can make your lifts better. So if they go on and boom, they get the big jump, then their only go-to is to go on more. Yeah. Right? Because they don't understand. Now, at a certain point, that will still top out. But at some point, every lifter is going to have to reassess how they're training, how they're resting, how they're eating to be able to increase performance. To me, it's better to learn that before you go on than after.
Would you give more clout to a coach who is natty or has used?
I don't really think either way.
No.
This becomes dicey because if they've used and then they're advising, say it's an online coach and they're advising, and then they're basically telling the lifters what to take. In essence, they're prescribing without a license.
Well, I don't even think that has to factor in. Like, I don't think, I've coached a lot of people and I've never been an advisor on that.
Yeah.
I'm just coaching them. It's good to know if they're on or not.
Oh, no. Yeah. That you should know because that will affect how you're going to make certain changes in their training. It also is, because there's another issue here too that, I've seen people that can take just a real little bit and respond like crazy from just a little bit of shit. I've seen other people that take a ton of shit and it doesn't help them at all. And they just take more and more and more. And so the side effects then become way out of hand. And a difference today compared to even 10 years ago or 2 decades ago is your doctor is not going to run labs on you. Nobody's going to be able to help mitigate any side effects that you may have. Being beat red with high blood pressure used to be a badge of honor, where it's just long term, it can be a huge issue where, there's companies like Merrick Health sponsors our podcast, and they have lab panels sent up, and health coaches to be able to guide them through there, and doctors to be able to help mitigate the side effects. Sometimes going on blood pressure medication, especially the medication today, is way different than it was 20 years ago.
Okay.
Like 20 years ago when that was advised,
Yeah.
you're like, fuck that. This shit makes you weak as hell.
Oh, really? Yeah.
So it's like, no, I'll just deal with the high blood pressure.
Yeah.
Where now it's not the case,
Okay.
So when you have companies out there now that can help mitigate that and also understand what your goals are,
Yeah.
like they're not going to be like the physician that you would see that if you went in for a cold,
Yeah. No.
they're like, no, stop taking tests.
Yeah.
Like, no matter what you went in there for,
Yeah. That's the reason.
that's the reason.
Yeah.
They'll understand, okay, look, you're doing this and this and this. You're taking excess dose
Yeah.
and prescribe or recommend whatever to help mitigate that. Where, man, I wish I had that earlier on,
Yeah.
because there's a lot of sides that we probably didn't have to deal with.
You don't think so, eh?
I don't think so. No,
Even
no.
at high doses? No?
Yeah, I think the blood pressure could have been mitigated.
Yeah.
And that would have essentially helped recovery. Because if your blood pressure is high all the time, then your ability to recover isn't going to be as well.
Yeah.
But to circle back to that, it was advised to me,
Yeah.
and I did, and then training tanked. But fortunately, medications have gotten better over the years. Where like low back pumps would be one of the other things that you kind of would run into.
Yeah.
Not
from just like walking around. Like, I don't think I ever got that. I never got heavy enough. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. Like, for me, it's just more like putting on my socks is a pain in the ass.
Yeah, I think, yeah.
Yeah. It's like minutes per day.
Yeah. Where the biggest issue there, I still think, is the number of younger kids, high school kids, jumping on trend. Trend.
Yeah.
That's hard to say. That's
cool.
running around where I didn't even have trend when I was coming up.
I'm not even fully convinced that trend is a good strength drug. I think it's just the most hardcore that makes you feel the shittiest. And yeah, some people think.
So you think it's working?
Yeah, I'm not convinced. Like, I think maybe it gets the reputation. Obviously, it's worked for people, but I think it gets a better reputation from bodybuilders going on it, and they're cutting, and they, their 10 rep leg extension max goes up. Like, they can move the pin down. It's like, oh, I'm so strong. But I don't know, like the way it makes people feel, I think, is not good. Like, people can't sleep on it. I don't know. Like, to me, it's not a strength drug.
Did you ever use it at all?
Yeah.
It's awful. That's how I was. It felt fucking awful. Like, nah, this is after I retired too. So it's like, nah, man, I don't need this shit.
Yeah, no. So it's the worst. One time I was, it was like, I was lifting, I think, for run 8, and my body was just hurting so bad. Like, I couldn't even put a bar on my back, and it was like week after week. I'm like, this meat is getting closer. What am I supposed to do? So I stopped taking that, and I figured out what I could do in that time, because I couldn't put a bar on my back. I was in so much pain, but I realized I could put a bar on my front. So in order to get my strength back, I took like 2 weeks off. I had like 6 weeks left before the meet, and I front squatted like 12 out of 14 days straight or something, just to a max plus back offs, and then like week off, bar on my back, fine, then meet, and saved the meet and did well and won. I think people give up on like injuries too quickly too. Like, if they have an injury, it's like everything's screwed. The whole meet's over. You can't train. But really, like, you just have to figure out options. Yeah. Like, when one door closes, another one opens. But
with the meets that you did towards the back end, the way that peaking phase kind of works, and I find this to be pretty universal, so we'll see your opinion. You're going to accumulate damage.
Yes.
Going into that. Now, the goal with each meet is to accumulate less damage than you did before. But because a lot of times the person who's going to win is the one who's actually healthiest.
Yes.
Out of everybody there.
Yeah.
And that was something I noticed after I retired and started really paying more attention.
Mhm.
It's like this guy really shouldn't have won because he's not the strongest, but this one didn't because his knees all fucked up. This one, his elbows are fucked up. This one, this is fucked up. So it's learning how to train through and around these things becomes an important tool.
Yeah. It's that, and also setting your training up so your meet day is on that day and you're not doing it in the gym before the meet. Like, I've seen people like that kind of person is just giving their medal away. Like, if you're doing it in the gym, then you're just giving your medal away at the meet. Like, I've seen that. I've taken medals from people that did that. Like, I've seen people lift giant weights in the gym before the meet, and I like, that's not going to be good for you, but I think it's going to be good for me.
Yeah.
And it's like, I've like been able to play it a little easier. Not all the time. I've made these mistakes over and over, so I can now see it. But I see people giving their medals away.
That was one of the things that with one of the first real conversations I had with Louis before coming to Columbus was me bitching about that very same thing. I'm like, I don't understand this. I squatted this for 3, 2 weeks ago.
On the wrong day.
It's like I squatted 800 for 3, 2 weeks ago. Why in the fuck am I only squatting 740? And missing 780. And it's a shitty lesson learned. It just sucks because at that time you're thinking, because you're doing the math. Like, oh shit, it's like 860. I'm going to kill it, But meanwhile, you're overreaching. You don't even know it.
You did it on the wrong day. If you can do that on that day, then you set your training up so it's all shifted over to that spot. So you're doing it on the meet day. Like, that's why I started leaving more and more in the tank. Like, I lifted weights in my final years that were like my max weights that I was lifting 2-3 years prior or something. I was just doing more work leading up to it and then leaving a little more in the tank in the end. And suddenly I go to a meet and feel super strong rather than like feeling like flat and beat up because I did too much. Going into the meet. If I lift 1 million pounds today, I'll lift 1 billion at the meet. It's like, no, just move it all over.
There should be a differential between what I would call your training max and your competitive max. Because you're deloading to peak for a reason, to be able to recover and to be able to have more there. And if that optimally, if that can be like 10%, I know some people it's been 15%, that's crazy. But a lot of people, it's inverse.
The
as
other
you're
way.
saying.
Most people now. If you follow like watching anything online or what I've observed in person is more people are lifting less in the meet than in the gym. I don't know where they get this from. I think it's from the maybe holding onto their peak too much, like with the RPE stuff.
Well, I think confidence too kind of plays into that because you got to know, if you're only squatting that 685, that's at 740 or whatever, it's going to definitely be there. If you haven't done it enough, then you're.
Well, do people overreach nowadays? Like, there's the crowd, like the IPF crowd that all does RPE and uses the red plates. And I feel like they mostly stay peaked all the time. And I don't see too much of overreaching, like pushing things past what you can kind of do, leaving some, and then backing off to let this meet happen and have like a stellar day. Like you're trying to set yourself up to have a good day. What can you do just set yourself up to have a good day? Not a perfect day, but a good day. That's probably going to be your best day.
It's hard to really know for sure, what most people are doing because as I said, the majority of the people are probably drug free and the majority of the people are probably not posting their stuff online.
It's probably true.
So it's true. I try to avoid looking at certain things in absolutes with the reality of what we see online isn't real, as we've kind of learned over the past decade that most things that you see online aren't real, compared to what you see in your real life.
It's not real. I don't know anymore. People post a lot, so I don't know. And trends happen and people just follow the trend.
That's the funny one because like the pause deadlift would be a trend. Like somebody probably saw somebody do it online. There it goes.
One is good, so pause even twice. And it's like, well, if it works on the deadlift, I might as well pause the bench midway too. And it's just like, I don't know what you're doing. Last year it was the a one arm cable lat row. Oh yeah. It's like a high pull down into a low row. All of a sudden everybody's doing that. That's the thing. And it's like, okay, what's that?
I don't pay as much attention now as I used to, so I don't know what the trend is now, but there's always something rolling through.
The trend now. I don't know what the trend is.
Yeah.
RPE, I think.
That's been around for a long time. It's just with that one, it's so freaking hard to define.
Well, didn't Mike T kind of bring it around?
Yeah.
Like 2010 or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, he kind of was one that made it popular, and everyone jumped on that.
Yeah,
so.
and with his clients, he's got metrics to be able to really dial in.
Yeah.
What that is with variance, because with say like an RPE, because one of the things I asked him about is, let's say it's a 8.5 RPE. Am I supposed to get psyched up for that or not?
Oh, yeah.
Because isn't that two different numbers?
That changes things.
Because if I just do it nonchalantly, it's going to be really hard. But if I get, now how fired up am I allowed to get?
Yeah, that's right.
Because you let me go ape shit, hit ammonia, and go way more than what I should for
then
training.
You're going to be able to do a couple more reps.
Then I'm going to kill it.
Yeah,
so what is this? Right? Because that puts a whole damper on the whole thing as well, is what mental state you're supposed to be in.
It's working somehow.
Yeah.
I don't know. What do you think about the deadlift bars now, and like people getting super good at sumo with like the hook grip? Do you find it's getting a little mental?
It's different because it's on that one. I like to look at the ones that are pulling a lot, like over 900 pounds and stuff like that. And the deadlift with, just a straight bar compared to, say, the Texas deadlift bar. The straight bar I kind of see as this is one pull. The deadlift bar, it's two pulls.
It's straightening out and then going.
Yeah, it's straightening it out. And then with, say, the Kabuki bar, it's three.
Cool. Right?
Because as soon as it gets past your knees, it's going to whip forward.
Yeah.
So now you got to really time out exactly how you're pulling.
But it's all sumo though. Like when you pull it conventional, it's completely different. Like I feel like it's two different things now. Yeah. If you can do like feet to the plates, hook grip sumo deadlift, and the range of motion is very short, shouldn't you be allowed to do a maximum grip bench press, like as far out as you want, like right to the plates? Yeah,
I mean, that's like the nuance shit where I used to always complain about, because sometimes my butt would come up on the bench.
Yeah.
So I'd be like, no, wait a minute. How come if somebody with the short legs can put plates or blocks under their feet, but I can't put,
you can't dig a hole.
Yeah, I can't put an extra pad on the bench.
Yeah.
Because where my knee angle is, from the whole thing.
Or you can't dig a hole beside your feet.
Yeah.
To go in.
Yeah. So it's one of those weird ass things that's just kind of like nuance. It's always kind of part of the sport.
Yeah.
Where with those type of topics, my kind of default on that is I don't really care.
No.
But what do the lifters think? And because it's powerlifting, man. There's always drama of some sort somehow, right? Yeah. And then wherever the drama is, but something I'll be told was, well, most lifters, da 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 da.
Yeah.
And then I'll say, well, who is most?
Yeah.
And usually you're talking about a group of maybe 15 or 20 top lifters. I'm like, so if we were to poll everybody in that federation, send them a survey on what they feel about this topic, all of them, what would their answer be?
Yeah.
Usually it's going to be counter to whatever the drama answer
probably
is.
Yeah.
But they feel they can speak for everybody underneath them. Yet those are the same people that will bitch about politicians that make decisions based upon their own self-interest. And in a way, it's like, kind of, aren't you doing the same thing?
So who should we even use the term strong or strength for this stuff? Sometimes I'm thinking like maybe it all just is skill, because who's stronger in this scenario? Like you see someone lay down on a bench, they go maximum grip, they arc their back, they have like a very small range of motion. Let's say someone benches 600 pounds that way. Let's say next lifter comes up, pinky maybe on the ring, longer arms, you have like 2 feet range of motion versus like 8 inches or less. Who's stronger? Is the 500-pound lifter stronger? Is the 600-pound stronger?
I don't know if I'd use the word stronger. I'd
Yeah,
say
it's
who's
like-
the better power lifter,
Yeah.
right? Because strength is,
Yeah.
you know, it's
Well, one is more impressive, right?
Yeah,
Which
yeah.
one is more impressive to you? Like which person? You see someone lay down and do this, or you see someone lay down and do this. You would, if you saw someone do the closer grip 500, you go, oh, that's
I mean,
crazy.
personally, I'm going to say that the longer range of motion,
Yeah.
you know, but competitively, I'm going to say the person that's going to win,
Yeah, it's going to win. Yeah.
you know, because that's the sport,
Yeah.
you know, so manipulate and leverage is the best you can. Now, some people can't.
Mhm.
Like some people can't sumo, where, you know, some people, sumo's cheating. Well, some people just can't do it,
Yeah.
you know, so they could, you know, if it is cheating, everybody would sumo
Yeah.
and be able to do it. But some people structurally just are not able to do that.
No, so, but it gets weird to me because you're getting into some extreme body types and extreme manipulation
Mm-hmm.
to lift heavier weights. And it to me, it changes the term. I don't know if it is strength because there's a lot of different ways to be strong.
I probably don't perceive that as strength.
No?
No, because I mean, strength is mental too,
Yeah.
right? So I've known a lot of very top ranking powerlifters that I would not say are mentally strong.
No. Yeah,
You know,
that's
so
true.
you know, so there's that factor as well that kind of plays into that.
Yeah.
Were there any other topics that you wanted to?
No, I just wanted to come down and meet you, see your awesome facility. It's like, it's really cool for me to get like recognition from you because your site meant a lot to me coming up, especially. And just your whole like brand, the Elite FTS, just to me just means powerlifting.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really cool to like get the nod from you to be like, yeah, you can come down and talk. So I appreciate that.
No, this is great. This is normally where I ask people, like, how can people find you?
You can kind of find me. I mean, you can find me on Instagram. There's not a lot of posts. Jeremy Hamilton, or you can find me at Fortis West. Yeah, if you need to send me a message, and I'll answer. I still have like an old email out there. I'm not going to say it now, but people send me messages. I'll answer. Yeah, if you ask me like a specific question, I'll answer.
Any final thoughts?
No final thoughts. I don't think so. Like I'm not a big talker anyway. So, you have to ask me something to get the thought. Yeah.
No, I appreciate you coming down. Your story is, I like the story.
Yeah. It's a little different.
It's way different.
Yeah.
It's way different. So I appreciate you coming down. Thanks you for coming
Dave.
out. And with that said, we're done.
All right.
The Elite FTS Discord is an amazing group of people at all skill levels that are all there to help each other get better. I initially joined because I felt that I needed some guidance, and it's shockingly cheap. I've learned so much about lifting via the form checks and programming conversations. We've also delved pretty deep into nutrition, brain chemistry, and business, and life in general. My favorite features are the form checks, the training Q&A, and the community. I train myself and my wife in my garage gym, and with the Discord, I have the ability to have in-depth conversations about anything under the sun. As I've gotten older, it's been hard to find people passionate about athletics, and this group has changed that for me. It's had a profound effect on my life. I've met new friends, my approach to training has radically changed for the better, and I've become a better coach. My wife has some health issues that we've been able to mitigate thanks to the guidance of people in the server, and I love them for that. The value you can get for your money is stunning. You'll get access to some of the best people in the world, plus being part of such a kind, helpful community that deeply cares about all things athletics is a great thing to wake up to every day.
If you've been following the Table Talk podcast, you know that element is a staple in most strength athlete and coaches' repertoire when working with the athletes or as they're preparing for whatever endeavor they're preparing for. I personally use it every day. My favorite flavor is the grapefruit, which I'll mix in water during my training, post-training, or basically throughout the whole day. I'll also use half a pack on my oatmeal in the morning. And if I don't put it in my oatmeal, then I'll put half a pack in my coffee. There's a variety of different chocolate flavors that come into the chocolate pack. I'm using it throughout the entire day. I'm not front loading it before my training. And I find that it completely eliminates the brain fog which I just had, so maybe I should have had my Element. Table Talk listeners can receive a free sample pack with any order. To go to www.drinkelement.com/tabletalk. That again is www.drinkelement.com/tabletalk. Element also offers a no questions asked refund policy. So if you don't like it for any reason, give it to a salty friend and they'll give you a complete 100% money back. If you've been following the Table Talk podcast, you've heard us talk many times about the importance of lab work and biomarkers as far as tracking it for your health to avoid brain fog, low libido, just kind of feeling like crap all the time, and to optimize your performance. Today's podcast is brought to you by Merrick Health. Merrick Health is a premium telehealth platform that focuses on hormone optimization and preventative medicine. They do this through two different tracks. The first track is self-service or self-guided. Go to merrickhealth.com/tabletalk. You're going to see that there's two blood work packages that are available. The first one is the optimization package, and I'm going to read here for a second because there's a lot in this. The sex hormones are covered: prostate, thyroid, growth hormone, lipids, blood profile, metabolic health, insulin sensitivity, liver, kidney, vitamins, iron, and inflammatory markers. So it's full lab work that you typically aren't going to get through your primary care physician, and something that would be highly recommended, as you've heard through the podcast, at least once a year to be able to have that checked out through the panel that we have at Merrick Health/Table Talk. You can get that guided optimization package, which also comes with a 45-minute lab review call. We have a second panel that's set up, which is a checkup panel. The checkup panel is really more for those that have already had a full panel, but then they're routinely getting the labs done throughout the year. Myself, I get the labs done every 3 or 4 months. So the checkup panel basically is just the hormones, the lipid profile, metabolic, and blood. If anything's going to be off, it's usually going to fall within those. So the checkup panel is more for seeing if you're on the right track moving forward on correcting those biomarkers. So that panel again is at merrickhealth.com/tabletalk. The second path Merrick has is the guided optimization. The guided optimization, the way that works is they'll assign you a health coach. And with the health coach, the way that works is you'll set up a call with them, and then you'll determine what package or what biomarkers need to be checked based upon what you're looking for from a lifestyle standpoint, what things you're trying to correct, what things you would like for your hormone optimization, but just longevity and lifestyle and preventative medicine standpoint. Your health coach then will walk you through the whole process of having the labs done, reviewing the labs with you, and then meeting with you in regards to lifestyle changes that can be made to help offset any of the biomarkers that are off. But it's really more than that. It's to help keep you accountable for the things that you don't want to be accountable for. So for instance, when I meet with my health coach, it's completely transparent, and he has no problem, telling me that my sleep sucks, or I'm not taking the supplementation as I should, and having that conversation in a way that holds me accountable for one thing. The second part of that is I have to be accountable because the next labs will come up in 3 or 4 months. And if I'm not accountable for the things that I should be doing to correct those, then I have to meet with Jiraiya again. And he probably isn't going to be so happy about that, or he'll offer different suggestions on how to go about changing those biomarkers. So the guided optimization, the way you go about that is you go to merrickhealth.com/tabletalk. You look for the guided optimization. You set that up, you'll get 10% off your first order, even if it is just the labs or the guided optimization, by using the code TableTalk. So again, merrickhealth.com/tabletalk, discount code TableTalk. Hey guys, real quick, we realized that something ridiculous, like 80% of the people that watch the podcast don't subscribe. So subscribe to the channel and make sure to check out the description for more details on the guest, links to their pages, and give us a few days, but the show notes will be there. Or not the show notes, the timestamps. Hey, we're just rolling with this thing right now.